In this ninja world, I'm the one in charge now. Uzumaki Naraku. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176. I hope time can dilute everything. Konoha's 57th year. At this time, 3 years have passed since Naraku went to Shigu Forest to learn the magic of immortality. Konoha Village, training ground number 1. 2 figures, one yellow and one black, are holding each other in the playground, with golden hair that shines dazzlingly in the sun, azure eyes, and 6 long beards on his face. He is none other than Naruto. Naruto, who was born in 48, is now 9 years old. At this time, he is nearly meters tall. Although his face still looks a little childish, he can barely be regarded as an adult. Opposite him, the handsome black-haired figure was none other than Sasuke. Like most Uchiha, Sasuke has handsome long hair, a fair face, and a slender figure that makes him look very handsome. But at this time, he had a serious expression on his face and looked at Naruto in front of him with a slightly cautious look. Sasuke, who has been in school for 3 years, has been called the most outstanding genius in the Ninja Academy. In some daily training, even students who are 1 grade above him are not necessarily his opponents. However, Sasuke did not dare to be careless when facing Naruto at this time. Although Naruto was very unreliable at times, it was undeniable that Naruto's strength was not weaker than him. Wind escape, beast wave palm. At this moment, Naruto on the opposite side raised his hands. After quickly forming a seal, he let out a low shout and a strong wind energy condensed in his right hand. At this time, Sasuke's pupils shrank slightly when he saw this, and then he quickly raised his hands and began to form seals. Compared with Naruto just now, Sasuke's seal speed seems to be faster, but the difference between the two is not very big. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball, the signature ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan. Sasuke raised his right hand to his mouth and then blew out a red from flame his mouth. The red flames gathered quickly and then formed a huge fireball with a diameter of almost 3 meters. A scorching high temperature came from above the fireball, and then the fireball rushed straight forward. At this time, Naruto had also raised his right hand, and then with a fierce wave, a half-moon shaped transparent wind blade appeared in the air. The wind blade tore through the air and collided with the red fireball rushing forward. Kai. The moment the wind blade came into contact with the fireball, the sharp wind blade cut it in half. The moment it came into contact with the fireball, the fireballs that broke off from the middle rushed towards both sides. Sasuke and Naruto looked at each other, with strong fighting spirit rising in their eyes. Call out, call out, call out. This time Sasuke took the lead, raising his hand and firing a few shurikens towards Naruto. Stinky. Assistant, it's this move again. If you work all day long, you can't change your moves. Naruto's disdainful voice came, but even though he said this, a cautious look flashed in his eyes, and an unopened kunai appeared in Naruto's hand. Although Naruto and Sasuke are not weak in strength, both their families and the Ninja Academy have given them unsharp weapons on the grounds that they are too young. Just like the kunai held in Naruto's hand, not only was it not sharp, but the head was also specially treated, and there were no sharp corners. The shurikens thrown by Sasuke are also the same. They are all specially processed blunt weapons. Even if they hit people, they will only hurt a little at most. Naruto cautiously looked at the shurikens rushing in front of him. Although the shurikens were in front of him, Naruto's attention was focused on his surroundings. There is more to Uchiha shuriken throwing than meets the eye. Clang, clang, clang. The fact was just as Naruto expected. Several shurikens thrown by Sasuke changed their angles as they collided with each other, and then rushed over from Naruto's front and back at the same time. Call out, call out, call out. Sounds broke through the air one after another, and a total of 3 shurikens rushed towards Naruto at the same time. Clang. Naruto raised his right hand and blocked one with the kunai in his hand. Then he turned around, and a shuriken passed through his shoulder, and then the sound of metal collision sounded again on the field. The 3 shuriken attacks were all resolved by Naruto one by one. As a descendant of the Uzumaki clan, Naruto did not inherit the powerful sensing ninjutsu of Kaguya's hard sai. but his perception was naturally much stronger than that of ordinary people. In addition, without the trouble of the Kyuubi. Naruto's ninja talent is as good as Sasuke's. Clang. There was a sound of metal collision, and two figures, one black and one yellow, collided. With his flexible body, Sasuke turned around and appeared behind Naruto, and then kicked out without hesitation. With a bang, this kick shook Naruto's body. After finishing the kick, Sasuke didn't forget to laugh. Idiot Naru, your reaction is still so slow. Humph. Naruto snorted coldly at this. Light blue chakra emerged around him, and the next moment he clenched his hands and rushed towards Sasuke. Sasuke was not afraid of this at all. At the same time, he used chakra to attach to his body and launched a fierce taijutsu battle with Naruto. However, due to their age, neither of them were very strong in physical skills, and they had not practiced any specific moves, so their physical skills exchanges were just fist fights. Oh, Sasuke is getting more and more handsome as he grows. I don't know how many girls he will charm in the future. A gentle voice came from the seat next to the training ground. The speaker has long red hair and a red diamond-shaped crystal printed on his forehead. It is Kushina. As for the red crystal on her forehead, yes, it is Tsunade's yin seal that can maintain youth forever. Originally, Kushina had no intention of learning this ninjutsu. After all, she also had serious physical problems at the time, and how long she could survive was still a big question. But later, after Naraku completely resolved the hidden injuries on her body, she learned this ninjutsu from Tsunade. And the beautiful woman with long black hair sitting next to Kushina was Uchiha Mikoto. Speaking of handsomeness, your Naruto is not bad at all. After all, this child is Minato's child, Uchiha Mikoto said with a smile in her tone. But the next moment her expression changed, and she realized that she had said the wrong thing. Sinner, She turned to look at Kushina aside, only to find that the other party was carefully watching the battle between Naruto and Sasuke on the field, as if he had not heard her. A complicated look appeared in Mikoto's eyes, and Kushina acted as if she didn't care about Minato. But Mikoto didn't think so at this time. As Kushina's friendliest bestie in Konoha, Mikoto could clearly sense Kushina's longing for Minato. Ugh. In the end, Mikoto sighed softly in her heart. I hope time can dilute everything. Chapter 177. Invite the Jinchuriki of Sand Hidden Village over as guests. Konoha office. At this time, Tsunade was looking down at the information in her hand, but the more she looked at it, the more ugly her face became. What cargo went missing, and the employer suddenly gave up on the mission. In the past 2 years, any mission related to the Kingdom of Wind has rarely gone smoothly, as if someone in the Kingdom of Wind is deliberately targeting Konoha. Tsunade knew that this was not an illusion, but a fact. After many inquiries, coupled with the information obtained by Kakashi himself from the Kingdom of Wind some time ago, Tsunade confirmed one thing, that is, the 3 generations in Danzo who left the village 3 years ago have indeed joined Tsunagakure village. And I joined 3 years ago. Tsunade looked heavy. She did not expect that the 3rd generation could do this. But thinking about it on the other hand, whoever joined Tsunagakure village has nothing to do with her. However, Tsunade would not just let it go as regards the small actions taken by Tsunagakure village against their Konoha. Go and fetch Anbu Minister Kakashi, Tsunade whispered. Then Tsunade felt that the surrounding aura was missing. 3 years later, Kakashi successfully assumed the position of Anbu Minister a year ago, while the former Minister Jiraiya continued to hold an important position, that is, the guard of the 5th Hokage. For Jiraiya, the life of Anbu was not suitable for him. The reason why he agreed to be the Anbu Minister was just because Kakashi was too young, and he also wanted to protect Tsunade at any time. That's why he chose to be the Anbu Minister. But now he has obtained a more formal identity, and Kakashi has fully grown up, so there is no need for him to hold the title of Anbu Minister. Boom. Boom. 5 minutes later, there was a knock on the door in the office. Tsunade raised her head and said, "Please come in." A squeak. He has silver hair, a black mask on his face, and a forehead protector unique to Konoha village, covering his left eye. Although the figure is a bit slender, the visitor looks very safe. The person who came was none other than Kakashi. 3 years have passed, and now he has completely grown up, and the name of Konoha Silver Teeth has spread throughout the ninja world. During the past 3 years, during the mission, Kakashi met with the Kirigakure village, the 4th Mizukage, Yagira, the 3rd Tsuchikage of the Iwa Ninja village, Anoki, Kumogakure village, and the 8 Tails Jinchuriki Point. These famous strong men in the ninja world fought against each other, and even though there was no winner, Kakashi still became famous in the ninja world. Point to some extent, Kakashi's popularity is not even weaker than that of the Sannin of the year, Konoha White Fang. Point looking at Kakashi in front of her, Tsunade's eyes flashed with relief. Point. Although she had never actually fought against Kakashi, Tsunade knew that, even though she had overcome his blood phobia, she was no longer Kakashi's opponent in terms of strength. Although Kakashi never admitted it personally, Tsunade still learned something from Naraku during the battle with the 4th Mizukage, the 3rd Tsuchikage, and the 8-tailed Jinchuriki. Point. Kakashi only lost one game, and that was the 3rd Tsuchikage. Point. It is no exaggeration to say that from the perspective of ninjas from the 5 major nations in the ninja world, Kakashi's strength has ranked among the top 3 of the 5 major nations. Maybe in 2 years, it will be almost time to think about retirement, Tsunade thought in her mind. But before that, the war must be completely ended. Lord Hokage, Jiraiya-sama. When Kakashi came to the office, he bowed slightly to Tsunade, and then saluted into the darkness, where a tall figure could be vaguely seen. It was Jiraiya. Kakashi, you still need to go to Sunagakure village. As for the target, a trace of hesitation flashed in Tsunade's eyes. She wanted to order Kakashi to kill the 4th Kazekage directly. She believed that Kakashi now had the ability to do this. But after careful consideration, she gave up the idea. Now is not the time, she thought to herself. Invite the Jinchuriki of Sunagakure village to Konoha as a guest, Tsunade said astonishingly, and Kakashi in front of he was stunned with just one sentence. Tsunade, your plan is indeed. Jiraiya, who was hiding in the dark, also heard these words. After being slightly stunned, his eyes gradually became firm. This time Jiraiya will never back down. No matter what Tsunade wants to do, he will choose to support it. On Kakashi's side, after a brief daze, a determined look also appeared on his face. Yes, Hokage-sama. Kakashi didn't ask why, he only knew that he only needed to carry out the Hokage's orders, and he didn't need to think about other things, let alone the Jinchuriki of Sunagakure village. Even if Tsunade asked him to capture the 4th Kazekage of Sunagakure village, he would not frown. Today's Kakashi has this strength and even more confidence. Then Kakashi turned around and was about to leave, but was stopped by Tsunade. Wait a minute, Kakashi, there is someone else who will be going on this mission with you. Come with me, Kakashi muttered. He was thinking about who Tsunade would send with him, and the first thing to rule out was Shizu, because he was with Shizu before coming to the Hokage's office just now. If it was Shizu, Tsunade would have called them over just now. If it wasn't Shizu, who could that be? Several figures flashed in Kakashi's eyes one by one, but he rejected them all. Point. With Kakashi's current strength, he can complete ordinary tasks independently. Point. And now that he is the Enbu minister, he no longer needs to lead new people to familiarize themselves with the mission. So Kakashi has not teamed up with others to perform missions for a long time. Point. In fact, this is mainly because his strength is too high, and the tasks he performs are all of the highest level of difficulty. If an ordinary ninja performs tasks with him, he will only become a burden to him. Just when Kakashi was wondering who would go on the mission with him, a green figure came into the Hokage's office. Hokage-sama, you are looking for me. The green figure is none other than Kei, who is wearing a green training uniform and a Konoha Junin vest. After Kei walked into the office, he first gave Kakashi a look, and then respectfully saluted Tsunade. It's really you, Kei. Kakashi was not surprised when he saw the visitor. 2 days ago, he heard that Naraku was planning some big things with Itachi, so now the only one in the village who can carry out the mission with him is Kei. Kei, there is a mission that I need you and Kakashi to carry out together, Tsunade said in a deep voice, looking at Kei in front of her. Chapter 178 Disciple, I can't save you even as a teacher. Konoha village entrance. A silver-haired figure and a green figure appeared here. It was Kei and Kakashi who were in the Hokage's office just now. facing the mission assigned by Tsunade, K unconditionally obeyed, not to mention going on the mission with Kakashi. In the past 3 years, Naraku had to learn Senjutsu, so he was often not seen in the village, and Kakashi was also rarely seen. Because of the many Enbu tasks, it was even rarer for the two of them to go on a mission together. K probably thought for a moment that the last time they went on a mission together was a year ago, when they went to the Kingdom of Earth to inquire about information. Yozi, K, we are leaving. Kakashi stretched out his right hand and put it on K's shoulder. The next moment the Flying Thunder God activated, and the two of them disappeared in an instant. The Kingdom of Wind is located not far from Sand Hidden Village. The wind was howling here, and streaks of yellow sand were flying all over the sky. Suddenly two figures appeared here. It was Kakashi and K. The last time Kakashi came to Sunagakure village with Naraku, Shizu and the others, he had already left the mark of the Flying Thunder God near Sunagakure village. So, in order to save time this time, he directly used the Flying Thunder God technique to bring K here. In fact, not only Sunagakure village, but also Kirigakure, Iwa Ninja, Kumo Ninja, and the 5 great ninja villages are all left with Kakashi's mark. This means that now he can instantly appear in any of the 5 great ninja villages with just a thought village. It is precisely because of this that the senior officials of other ninja villages are extremely afraid. Just imagine if Kakashi, Naraku, Shizu, and Gei suddenly appeared in any ninja village except Konoha. Which ninja village could resist the 3 of them? Even the powerful third Tsuchikage couldn't defeat the 3 of them at the same time. This also means that if Konoha now wants to assassinate the top leaders of a certain ninja village, the success rate will not be less than 70%. In fact, this success rate is only a very conservative estimate. If Naraku and Kakashi are dispatched at the same time, the success rate will reach 90%. After arriving at Sunagakure village, K and Kakashi did not hesitate at all and rushed towards Sunagakure village in a flash. Konoha village, training ground number 1. At this time, Naruto was breathing heavily, and you could see that his forehead was covered with dense beads of sweat, and Sasuke, who was standing opposite him, was not feeling well either. Sasuke's chest rose and fell, and his handsome face was also covered with beads of sweat like drops of water. The result of today's battle was the same as most of the previous battles. The two of them ended in a draw point, although both sides still had trump cards that they had not used. Naruto and Sasuke still stopped fighting with a tacit understanding. All cards are not used against partners. Just when the two of them had just finished fighting, 2 figures, one red and one black, appeared behind them. He has short red hair, a handsome face, and is nearly 1.8 meters tall. He looks very elegant, but the only drawback is that his eyes are closed, as if he is blind. It was Naraku, and the one who appeared here with him was a man with black hair, wearing clothes with the Uchiha clan emblem, and 2 deep ravines on his face. It was Itachi Uchiha. 3 years have passed, and both of them have grown a lot, especially Naraku, who now looks a little taller than Itachi and looks like an adult. Elder brother, uncle, you're back. The delighted voices of Sasuke and Naruto came. Yes, we are back, Naraku and Itachi murmured at the same time. These 2 guys still know how to come back. Kushina and Mikoto, who were not far away, also noticed the sudden appearance of Naraku and Itachi. Kushina's slightly reproachful tone was laced with concern. Sister, mom. Naraku and Itachi each pulled a kid and walked to Kushina and Mikoto together, and then they left here. In the land of the Thousand Hands clan, 3 figures, 2 red and 1 yellow, returned here. After returning to the clan, Kushina went straight to the kitchen, with a happy smile on her face with her back to Naraku. Sister, it's true. Naraku, who noticed Kushina's change in mood, smiled and shook his head. Although he has been away from the village for most of the past 3 years, he will return to the village for a few days every once in a while. Sure enough, I'm getting too old and becoming more and more emotional. With this thought in his mind, Naraku was dragged by Naruto to the training ground to teach him ninjutsu. Naraku expressed his helplessness about this. Just like in the original work, Naruto only has wind attribute chakra. In the past few years, under Naruto's entanglement, Naraku has taught Naruto all the wind ninjutsu that he mastered below A level. But Naruto still asks for ninjutsu lessons every time he sees him. To this, Naraku could only say, "Naruto, it's not that I don't love you, I can only blame you for your inability." In the end, Naraku taught Naruto a taijutsu before letting him give up. The day passed quickly. In the evening, perhaps because of Naraku's arrival, Kushina specially prepared a large table of dishes today and invited Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Shizune over. A pleasant dinner ended like this. Naraku, who had had a good meal, was about to sneak back to the room, but Tsunade called him to her study. Naraku's expression changed slightly at this. Even though he wanted to escape, he was finally ready to give it a hard blow. Boom. Boom. Naraku walked outside the study and raised his hand to knock twice. "Come in." Tsunade's majestic voice came. "It seems that the person who came here is not kind." Naraku's face straightened when he heard the voice, and then he opened the door and walked in with a smile on his face. Almost as soon as he stepped into the room, Naraku had the idea of turning around and leaving. Although his eyes were unable to see, Naraku could clearly feel three unusually powerful auras in the room at this time. It was Kushina, Jiraiya, and Tsunade. Sister Tsunade, teacher. You are looking for me." Naraku walked into the study with a smile on his face. Facing these people, even if he had the strength of the 6th level, he couldn't get mad. Facing Naraku's overtures, the expressions of Kushina and the other three did not change at all, especially Kushina and Tsunade, both of whom looked at Naraku with scrutinizing eyes. Even though he couldn't see it, Naraku felt two eyes exuding a cool aura falling on him. Only Jiraiya's eyes were a little different. With a hint of smile in his eyes, he seemed to be saying, "Disciple, even my master can't save you today." Chapter 179 The Disappearing Eyeball. Naraku's plan. In the clan of the Thousand Hands clan after Naraku left the study, the place fell into silence. "Why? Don't you use Senjutsu to restore your eyes?" At this moment, Tsunade's majestic tone reached everyone's ears as she spoke. Her eyes were fixed on Naraku in front of her, her eyebrows furrowed, and she was very much planning to take action if Naraku said the wrong thing. Kushina, who was sitting next to Tsunade, had the same expression at this time. The two of them must give them a perfect answer from Naraku today. "I knew it must be because of this." Naraku gave a helpless smile and then spoke. "It's not that I don't want to restore my eyes, it's just that I haven't fully mastered the magic yet. If I use it to restore my eyesight rashly, it may be counterproductive." Naraku said word by word, hoping to dispel the doubts of Tsunade and Kushina. But Tsunade and the two obviously would not believe Naraku so easily. At this moment, Tsunade suddenly stood up. She stretched out her left hand and scratched the palm of her right hand. Then she slapped the ground with one hand. Boom. A burst of white smoke appeared, and then a slug the size of Tsunade's hand appeared here. Forehead. The secret is going to be revealed now. After feeling this familiar aura, Naraku knew that his lie was going to be exposed. Slug knew his situation very well. The fact was just as he expected. Slug directly told him his situation. Tsunade-sama, Kushina-sama, Jiraiya-sama, Naraku-sama. Slug is still so polite. Jiraiya murmured. Compared to the polite slugs, the people from Myomu Mountain were like gangsters. There is a sharp contrast between the two. However, no one in the room noticed his thoughts at this time. Tsunade and Kushina's attention was focused on the slug. After saying hello, Slug continued to speak. "I'm sorry, Naraku-sama." Slug first turned to give Naraku an apologetic look, then turned around and started to say, "A year ago, Lord Naraku had completely mastered the magic of Shigu Forest and Muine healing, and the celestial arts mastered by Naraku-sama are called the most perfect celestial arts by immortals. Even compared with the former Hashirama-sama, they are not far behind." Naraku could only smile helplessly when he heard this. Although Slug was right, it directly exposed what he just said. "Okay, thank you Slug. It's okay, Tsunade-sama. If it's okay, I'll leave first." With that, the slug dissipated in a puff of smoke with a pop. Then Tsunade and Kushina both turned to look at Naraku, their eyes filled with coldness in response. Naraku had a good expression on his face. Late at night, after 2 hours of bombing by Tsunade and Kushina, Naraku finally escaped from the battlefield. When he returned to his room, he breathed a sigh of relief and felt a lot more relaxed. After a brief wash, Naraku walked to a mirror, and then you could see his eyelids moving slightly, and the next moment he opened his eyes directly. But at this time, even if Naraku opened his eyes, he felt that there was darkness in front of him, as if he had no eyeballs at all. That's right, Naraku's pupils were pitch black at this time, sunk inward, and his eyeballs were gone. It turned out that his eyes were only blind due to excessive use of the main Gekkai Sharingan, but the eyeball was still intact, but now the entire eyeball is missing. Fortunately, my sister and the others didn't notice it. Naraku raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a wry smile. He stretched his fingers across his eyelids. Alas, it seems it will take some time. Naraku sighed softly. In fact, there is no other reason why Naraku has no eyeballs. He picked them out before he mastered the magic of immortality. What he was thinking at that time was that Shigelin's magic could reorganize all the organs in the body, and the pair of eyes should also be able to grow back. And the reason why he dug out his original eyes was to get a pair of more powerful eyes. That's it. Eternal Mangeki Sharingan. As we all know, in Naruto, if you want to obtain the Eternal Mangeki, you need a very harsh condition, which is to transplant the Mangeki Sharingan of your loved one. The eyes of a close relative, and also required the Mangeki Sharingan. Naraku could not meet either of these two conditions. His true identity is an orphan, which Naraku has already guessed, so he has no close relatives at all. Even if he does, they are most likely dead, otherwise how could they abandon him in the first place? So if you want Naraku, you can only obtain the Mangeki Sharingan through another method. Since he had no close relatives, Naraku decided to find another shortcut. He decided to let himself have two pairs of Mangeki Sharingan, and then fuse them. That's why he removed his eyeball before mastering it. Originally, Naraku felt that this method might not work, so he just gave it a try. However, after a year of verification, he confirmed that it was feasible. Although his eyeballs have not grown back yet, Naraku can already feel some weak pupil power in his eye sockets. Naraku had a hunch that his eyeballs would grow back soon. Continue. After a brief wash, Naraku sat cross-legged on the bed and clasped his hands. The next moment, a powerful energy suddenly appeared on his body, and red lines could be seen appearing on his face, just like tattoos. This is exactly the immortal mode of Shigelin. Just like the black lines on the face of the first generation, some lines will also appear on Naraku's face in this state, but the color is red. In this state, Naraku's own vitality will be increased several times. If necessary, he can now change the cell division speed of any part of his body at any time. This also means that in this state, he already has the ability to heal without seal. Naraku clasped his hands together and began to manipulate the cells around his eyes, speeding up the division of these cells. This process has become very familiar to him, and since he successfully mastered the magic technique of Shigu Forest, he has repeated this action every night. Just after Naraku turned on the Sage mode, the faces of Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Kushina in the clan changed. They all looked towards Naraku's room in unison. Especially Tsunade, a look of shock appeared in her eyes. For Jiraiya and Kushina, the most they felt was a powerful energy. But it was different for Tsunade. She felt an unusually familiar aura on top of that powerful energy, an aura that had only appeared when she was a child. Chapter 180. Ask Mr. Afeni to help us complete our plan. In the Uchiha clan's clan, this is the main Gekkai Sharingan. It's a really powerful pair of eyes. In a hidden secret room, Fugaku looked at the pair of scarlet Sharingan in front of him. There was a black triangular pinwheel pattern in the eye socket, which was the main Gekkai Sharingan. The person standing in front of him at this time was none other than Fugaku's proud eldest son, Uchiha Itachi. Before today, Itachi and Naraku left the village to perform a secret mission, and these pairs of Mangeki Sharingan were the reward for the mission. In fact, it was said to be a mission, but Itachi knew very well that it was just a game that Naraku made specifically for him. The purpose was to get him to activate the Mangeki Sharingan. Although the method is very simple and crude, the effect is also excellent. After Shizu, the Uchiha clan once again had a pair of Mangeki Sharingan. After confirming that Itachi had indeed activated the Mangeki Sharingan, Fugaku turned around and walked outside the secret room. Suddenly, Fugaku seemed to sense something. He turned his head sharply and looked to the right. The three Megatoma's Sharingan exuded endless coldness, and a swaying tree branch appeared in Fugaku's sight. "Father, Itachi's voice sounded behind Fugaku. The same pair of scarlet eyes looking at the swaying tree branches. A sharp light appeared in Itachi's eyes. Itachi longs for peace. Whether it is him in the original book or him now, he is the one who most hopes that Uchiha and Konoha can coexist. He would give anything for this, and he would never allow anyone to destroy the peace between Uchiha and the village. Even his people would never allow it. Itachi's body tensed slightly, and just when he was about to catch up, Fugaku stretched out his hand to stop him. "Father." Although Itachi was a little confused, he still stopped. "Go and invite Naraku over tomorrow. Some things really need to be resolved," Fugaku said in a heavy tone. After that, he left here and walked towards his room. "It is good." Looking at Fugaku's back, Itachi felt for the first time what kind of pressure Fugaku, as the leader of the clan, was facing. "Father, some things are destined to be done by someone," Itachi murmured in his heart, with a trace of determination flashing in his eyes. At this time, on the other side of the clan point in a luxuriously decorated house, there are three white-haired old men wearing Uchiha clan costumes. They are the first elder, second elder, and third elder of the Uchiha clan. They are the clan members of the Uchiha clan point in terms of blood relationship. They are all Fugaku's uncles, and they all have the same blood in their bodies. However, at this time, they had no respect for Fugaku, the clan leader. "Brother, are the masked man's words really credible? As long as we launch a coup, kill the 5th Hokage, secretly control the 4th Hokage's wife, release the Kyuubi in her body, and then wreak havoc on the village when the Kyuubi, we are stepping forward to control the Nine Tails with the powerful eye power of the Sharingan, so that the Uchiha clan will become the heroes of Konoha. Then the position of Hokage will really fall into our hands." The person who spoke was the youngest of the three elders, Uchiha Fumahiro, and he was also the younger brother of the eldest elder, Uchiha Fumaki. The second elder who heard what Wenmin said also looked at the first elder in response. The great elder Uchiha Fumika waved his hand slightly, signaling the two of them not to worry. At this moment, the space in front of them trembled, and then a figure wearing a black robe and a tiger-striped mask appeared in front of the three of them. The expressions of the three elders changed slightly, and a look of fear appeared on their faces. Even though they had seen it many times, they still felt that this kind of space-related pupil technique was too powerful. "Mr. Rafei, you are here." At this moment, the great elder stood up and said to Obito in front of him, while pointing to an empty seat, "Please sit down." At this time, the great elder kept his posture very low when facing Obito. Ignoring the great elder's politeness, Obito's hoarse voice came from within the mask. "How are you, three elders? How do you think about things?" The only scarlet right eye exposed on the mask swept over the three people one by one, and there was a clear look of disgust on Obito's face under the mask. Obito now only hates Uchiha, a race he was once proud of. Uchiha, a clan full of evil power. The unusual way of opening their eyes is enough to prove that this clan is full of hatred. A family like this should be destroyed as soon as possible, Obito thought in his heart. Facing Obito's words, the three elders looked at each other, and then the elder spoke cautiously. "That's right, Mr. Rafei. You should also know that today's 4th generation wives often live in the Senju clan's clan, and they are secretly protected by Enbu. There is also the 5th Hokage, Senju Tsunade. As one of the three ninjas, she has cage level strength, and obediently, Jiraiya, who is also one of the three ninjas, is still protecting her secretly. Even if I, the Uchiha clan, have many masters, it would be difficult to get close to these two people, let alone control them." Being able to say these words shows that the current great elder still has some sense, and at least he has not blindly believed in the masked man's words to launch a coup. In that case, only destruction awaits them. Kindness. Obito's eyes narrowed when he heard this, and a murderous aura came from him. "Then if you say this, great elder, you are ready to give up. Haha, the majestic Uchiha clan is actually willing to be someone else's dog in Konoha. Madara-sama, it seems that these juniors of yours are going to disappoint you." A disdainful tone came from Obito's mouth point. When he first came into contact with the Great Elder and the others, he had used Madara's name to fool them, but this time Obito did not pretend to be Madara point in the eyes of the Great Elder and the others. He was Madara's subordinate, a helper who helped the Uchiha clan complete their plan to unify Konoha. Facing Obito's ridicule, the faces of the three elders gradually became ugly, but they still did not dare to rashly agree to Obito's plan point. Although they are unwilling to admit it in their hearts, the elders and the others know very well that among the current Uchiha clan, except for the masters of the older generation point in the entire Uchiha clan, only Shisu and Itachi can take action. But it is obvious that the two of them are now on their opposite sides and it is impossible to help them complete such a plan. Mr. Afei, our Uchiha clan is indeed in decline, but we have never wanted to give up, and we have never stopped pursuing Lord Madara. Please, ask Mr. Afei to help us complete our big plan. Chapter 181 successfully opened. Mangekyo Sharingan. In the Uchiha clan's clan, under the leadership of the Great Elder Wen Hui, the three elders all bowed towards Obito with a look of prayer on their faces. If other clan members saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. The three elders of the Uchiha clan, what kind of people they are. Even when facing the clan leader Uchiha Fugaku, they always look aloof. How can you be so respectful to a person like you are now? However, for the sake of the grand plan, in order to restore Uchiha to its former glory, at this moment the three elders put down their inner pride at the same time. Haha, what a pitiful and sad clan. Obito sneered in his heart when he saw this scene, and then he took out a scroll from his sleeve and threw it to the Great Elder. Remember to inform me when you are ready to take action. It seems that for Madara-sama's sake, I'm here to help you. After saying these words, Obito used his divine power and left here. Thank you, Mr. Fei. The three people said with great respect, but the moment Obito's figure completely disappeared, the three people's eyes instantly became fierce. Pooh, you're just that person's subordinate. Why are you so crazy? When our Uchiha returns to its peak, we will be the first to finish you off. The hot-tempered third elder said angrily. Although the first elder and the second elder did not say anything in this regard, their expressions were equally unkind. They have always been in high positions, how could they ever be so humble? This. Suddenly, the great elder's trembling tone came. At this moment, he was holding the scroll, his hands were shaking, and there was a look of shock on his face. Brother, this is what you are doing. The second elder and the third elder looked at each other in confusion. The great elder said nothing, and just handed the scroll to the two of them. After reading the contents on the scroll, both of them were equally shocked. The Mangekyo Sharingan turns on like this. After a brief shock, a sharp light flashed in the eyes of the three people at the same time. After looking at each other, they all left here. The great elder's home. Grandpa, you are back. A young man with long black hair who was exercising with a kunai in his hand, had a smile on his face. After seeing the great elder, his name is Uchiha Rasho. He is another grandson of the great elder, and he is also the genius of the Uchiha clan after Itachi and Shisu. The great elder who had just walked in looked at Ushio in front of him. A trace of distress flashed in his eyes, but was soon replaced by a sharp light. You, Shio, don't blame grandpa, I do everything for Uchiha. I hope you can understand me. Facing Ushio, the great elder always maintained a trace of majesty on his face, even though this was his most beloved grandson. What? At this moment, a scream suddenly appeared. In the silent night sky, this sound was unusually obvious. Its mother. Suddenly, Ushio's expression changed. This voice was very familiar to him. It was his most respected mother. When Ushio was young, he was not favored as the grandson of the great elder. After all, the great elder had many grandsons, 8 if not 10. Whether it is his father or the elder who is his grandfather, they do not value Ushio and rarely give him care. Their attention is always on his brother Zuoji. So Ushio's life as a child was not particularly good. Only his mother cared about him the most. Similarly, in Ushio's heart, his mother is also the person he cares about the most. So after hearing this voice, Ushio didn't hesitate at all, and ran in one direction in a flash. Hope you won't disappoint me, ZUOG, Uchiha. Looking at Uchiha's leaving figure, a cold light flashed in the Great Elder's eyes, and then he flashed and walked towards Uchiha unhurriedly chased in the direction. Mother, not long after, a painful roar echoed in the night sky. When the Great Elder arrived, he only saw Uchiha's trembling body, and in front of him was a middle-aged woman lying in a pool of blood. Uchiha, the biological mother of Zuosuke and Yaoshao, and also the cousin of Uchiha Makoto. What? Who is it? Who killed my mother? Uchiha screamed in pain. At the same time, his eyes turned scarlet, and the 3 Magatama Sharingan started to operate automatically. You could see 3 black Magatama spinning rapidly in the eye sockets. A powerful life force burst out from him. Is it going to succeed? The face of the Great Elder behind Uchiha changed slightly, and then he quickly formed seals with his hands without hesitation. A light blue light curtain visible to the naked eye appeared, covering the entire area. Although the Uchiha clan is not good at sealing techniques and barriers, he can still use this simple isolation formation. After completely isolating this area, the Great Elder raised his hand slightly. Aha! Aha! Great Elder! In an instant, 2 figures appeared behind him. They were wearing masks and their clothes were black, and there was no Uchiha clan emblem on their clothes. Secret guards. These are secret guards who belong exclusively to the Uchiha clan. Some of them may not be members of the Uchiha clan, but it is undeniable that the secret guards are absolutely loyal to the Uchiha clan. Go and find out who murdered Miho. A voice full of anger came from his mouth. At this time, he seemed to be really angry because his daughter-in-law was killed. If the Great Elder finds out the news, please inform me as soon as possible. A hoarse voice came at this moment. I saw Uchiha slowly turning around and looking towards him. The next moment, a pair of eyes that were shedding tears of blood appeared in the Great Elder's sight. At the same time, an energy full of hatred and killing came from Uchiha's body. At this time, the Great Elder was staring at Uchiha's pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan that were constantly rotating. At this time, his eyes were full of expectation. Boom. At this moment, a powerful energy suddenly appeared not far from here. Although it was only for a moment, the Great Elder felt that the breath was very familiar. Could it be? A bold guess grew in his mind. What? At this moment, Uchiha, who was standing in front of him, looked up to the sky and roared again, and then a powerful evil energy flashed across his body. It can be seen that in his eyes, the 3 black Magatama that were spinning gradually stopped, but the Magatama has disappeared, and a new 4-cornered windmill pattern appears in his eyes. This is success. Mangekyo Sharingan. A hint of excitement flashed in the Great Elder's eyes. Chapter 182 Myomu Mountain, The Call of Toad Immortal. The next day, in the meeting hall of the Uchiha clan, Fugaku, who was sitting in the main seat, had a gloomy face. He had just learned a piece of news. It was the news that Uchiha was assassinated last night. Miho. Fugaku was no stranger to this name. He knew that this was his wife's cousin, especially because she was the daughter-in-law of the Great Elder. Something like this happened in the Uchiha clan, and no matter what, he, the clan leader, could not escape his involvement. This was indeed the case. Very early in the morning, he received a notice from the elders that a clan meeting was to be held. Fugaku felt helpless about this. He knew that the Great Elders and others were putting pressure on him and their faction. Naturally, Fugaku would not go as they wished. He only said in the clan meeting that the real murderer would be found, and did not say much else. Fugaku had already lost patience with the elders. Several years of internal fighting had long made him feel exhausted. Fugaku had already made up his mind on how to deal with them, without breaking or establishing. Today's Uchiha really needs a real baptism. However, due to the unexpected death of Uchiha, the clan had to hold a grand funeral for her, so Fugaku's original plan to invite Naraku over had to be put on hold for the time being. Although he wanted to deal with the Great Elder and the others as soon as possible, Hui was a virtuous woman. In the end, Fugaku decided to arrange her funeral first, and then settle the accounts with the Great Elder and the others after the funeral. As for who assassinated Miho, Fugaku had already sent someone to investigate this matter in the land of the Thousand Hands clan. What? After a rare nap, he stretched out and got up. By now, whether it was Tsunade and Kushina who went to work, or Naruto and Shiro who went to school, they were no longer in the clan point, but Naraku, who had just walked out of the room, felt a familiar atmosphere. "Teacher, you didn't protect Sister Tsunade today," Naraku said, but the next moment he seemed to think of something, and immediately changed his words. "No, I should say why didn't you protect your master's wife?" Naraku said with a teasing smile on his face. "You kid." Jiraiya couldn't help but laugh at this, with a smile on his face. After getting along with each other for several years, the relationship between Jiraiya and Tsunade has long become unusual. Although there are some things that they have not yet made clear, everyone basically knows everything they should know. Naraku is also happy for his teacher, whether before or after the time travel. Naraku likes Jiraiya very much, so now that he and Tsunade have achieved positive results, it can be regarded as saving Naraku a regret. "Come with me to Mount Mayaboku. Toad Sage said he wants to see you." Jiraiya's face became serious when he got down to business. Originally, he had followed Tsunade to the Hokage's office, but he suddenly received a message from Mount Mayaboku, so he returned to the clan and conveyed the news to Naraku. "Toad Immortal, what does he want from me?" After hearing that it was the Slug Immortal who was looking for him, Naraku's expression changed slightly. Ever since he came into contact with the Slug Immortal in the Shikibone Forest, Naraku has always been wary of the three holy places. He always had a feeling that these three immortals were not as simple as they seemed. During the past 3 years, when he was practicing immortality in Shigu Forest, he had come into contact with immortal slugs several times, but every time the other party gave him an unfathomable feeling. Even when he mastered the immortality a year ago, this feeling became more intense. What happened? Jiraiya looked at Naraku, who was a little abnormal, and couldn't help but ask. "Nothing." Naraku shook his head slightly and said, "I was just wondering why Toad Immortal suddenly wanted to see me." Naraku trusted Jiraiya in his heart, but there were some things that he couldn't say right now. After all, it was just a feeling he had. And Jiraiya had great trust in Toad Sage, and even spent his whole life pursuing the so-called Son of Prophecy. Naraku felt that this was very unworthy. Who knows, Toad Immortal is always like this. Every time he wakes up, he either wants to see this or that. Jiraiya spread his hands with a helpless expression on his face. "That's it, then. I'll go to Myomu Mountain," Naraku murmured. Later, after rejecting Jiraiya's request to go to Mount Mayaboku with him, Naraku used reverse channeling to go to Mount Mayaboku alone. Sure enough, just like the Shikibone Forest, Myomu Mountain is also filled with a lot of natural energy. After feeling the huge natural energy around him, Naraku murmured softly. At this time, he also understood why Myomu Mountain, Shigu Forest, and Langdi Cave were called the three holy places. Although he had never been to Raichi Cave, Naraku felt that the environment there should not be much different from Shigu Forest and Myomu Mountain. Everything here is full of natural energy, whether it is animals or plants. It is dozens of times larger than the outside world. Just like Gamabunta, in terms of size, he is almost the ceiling of all psychic beasts, except of course the slugs and snakes in the other two holy places. Is the psychic world really in the same space as the ninja world? Naraku suddenly thought in his heart. In the past, he had always believed that the psychic world and the ninja world were in the same space, but the distance between them was relatively far. But as Naraku came into contact with Myomu Mountain and Shigilin one after another, he gradually began to doubt this idea in his heart. If the two are really in the same space, then where can you enter Mount Myomu in the Marshbone Forest? Although this was mentioned in the original work, Naraku felt that it was not that simple. Never mind. Naraku shook his head slightly and decided not to think about it for now. No matter what kind of connection there is between the psychic world and the ninja world, or what kind of existence the three great immortals are in the three holy places, these have nothing to do with Naraku, at least not now. Walking in Myomu Mountain, among other things, Naraku felt that the air here was really fresh. If he wanted to retire in the future, it would be really suitable to live in this environment. "Zio Naraku, you are here." While Naraku was wandering around, a familiar voice sounded in his ears. Feeling the familiar aura beside him, Naraku smiled slightly. "Yes, Fukasaku Sage, I'm here." At this time, you can see that a small green toad with a white beard and white eyebrows appears next to Naraku. It is one of the top leaders of Mount Myaboku, Fukasaku Sage, who possesses powerful Senjutsu chakra in his body. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, a tale of anger mixed with a hint of helplessness. In the Sand-Hidden Village, at this time, Kakashi and Gai have secretly sneaked into the Sand-Hidden Village and have found this target, Gaara, the one-tailed Jinchuriki, son of the 4th Kazekage. However, the two of them did not act immediately. Instead, they chose to hide their bodies and wait and watch, just because Gaara had entered an uncontrollable state at this time. Transformed into a half-tailed beast, Gaara's whole body was enveloped in dark red energy at this time, and a red tail kept slapping the ground behind him. In fact, normally speaking, Gaara, who has been sealed by the 8 trigrams, should not go berserk easily, but this is not the case ever, since the sealing technique on Gaara's body was replaced with the Bagua seal. The Ichibi in his body did feel at peace for a while at the beginning. But this peace only lasted for about half a year. Since then, the one-tailed beast in Gaara's body has gone berserk again, but unlike the previous one, that would completely transform into a tailed beast. When he went berserk, the current one-tailed beast can only reach a half-tailed beast form, even if it goes berserk. That's what it looks like in front of you. Raw. Gaara, who transformed into a half-tailed beast, put his feet on the ground like a wild beast and let out a roar toward the sky. Visible to the naked eye, the air around him fluctuated like a tide. In the past, when Gaara went berserk like this, Rasa would appear on the scene immediately and suppress him with force. But since Tsunagakure village had a new elder 3 years ago, the people who came to stop Gaara from going on a rampage also changed. I saw a young man holding a silver sword not far in front of Gaara. The young man looked a little thin, and his eyes were full of disdain when he fell on Gaara in front of him. The young man was none other than Sarutobi Liming, whose arm was cut off by Kakashi 3 years ago. He looks much more mature now than before, and his demeanor has become much more restrained. His arm, K, who was hiding in the dark, had a hint of surprise in his eyes after seeing Sarutobi Ikumaki's intact arm, but when he thought that the dead Danzo could be resurrected, K was relieved. Compared to Gai's shock, Kakashi seemed much calmer at this time. He had come to Tsunagakure village once before to inquire about news, and he already knew that Sarutobi itch in his arm had recovered. Moreover, Kakashi also knew that not only Sarutobi Ikum, but also Rasa, whose arm was cut off by him, had also recovered. Next time it won't be the arms, Kakashi murmured softly in his mind. In fact, Kakashi also knew the reason why Sarutobi Liming and the others were able to recover their arms, and that was what Naraku had mentioned to him a long time ago. The first generation cells. Kakashi knew that Sarutobi Liming and the others had first generation cells transplanted into their bodies. In this regard, he could only say that these people disrespected the deceased and their first Hokage. Boom. Suddenly there was a loud noise. I saw a dark red figure flying backwards at high speed. Boom, boom, boom. The huge force caused it to break several walls. Roar. But the next moment, the dark red figure attacked forward at great speed again. Even though Gaara is not very old now, in his half-tailed beast form, he still has strength that is not weaker than that of a Jonin. But even so, he was still beaten violently by Sarutobi Ikni in front, and Gaara's fierce offensive was unable to cause any harm to Sarutobi Ikni. Boom. After kicking Gaara's body away again, Sarutobi Liming showed a trace of impatience on his face. It's almost time to finish, Sarutobi Liming murmured, and then a violent energy burst out from his body, and then dark red energy enveloped his whole body, with 4 dark red tails swaying behind him. At this time, Sarutobi Liming also entered the state of tailed beast transformation, but compared to Gaara, his condition was much better. Although he was wrapped in the tailed beast coat, he did not lose his mind, and his body still maintained a standing posture. From this, it can be seen that Sarutobi Liming has almost mastered the power of tailed beasts. That's exactly what happened. Point today. Sarutobi Yiming has mastered most of the power of the six tails in his body, but this is not because he has the same mind as the six tails Sarutobi Yiming. From the day he became the six tails Jinchuriki, he has never regarded the six tails as a partner, but as a tool, and it is still the same now. Therefore, it is impossible for him to become a perfect Jinchuriki, and the reason why he can control the power of six tails now is just through a tough method. Because a large number of first generation cells were transplanted into his body, Sarutobi Yiming was born with very obvious restraint on tailed beasts. Coupled with the assistance of the Bagua seal, the Vulpix at this time was completely controlled by it in his body. It has become something like a power bank. Therefore, Gaara, who is now only in the half-tailed beast state, cannot be a match for Sarutobi Ikumi. After the tailed beast coat appeared on him, Sarutobi's combat power greatly increased. In just a few rounds, he stepped on Gaara's back. Boom, boom, boom. The four red tails on its back kept slapping Gaara's body. Click, click. The force was so great that the ground cracked like a spider web. At the beginning, Gaara on the ground would still resist twice, and the tail behind him would also try to counterattack, but no matter how hard he struggled, his attack would be easily broken by Sarutobi Yiming. Until finally, the dark red energy wrapped around Gaara gradually became dim. I'm sorry, Gaara, I can't go on anymore. A slightly apologetic voice sounded in Gaara's mind. It was Ichibi. In Gaara's consciousness space, a huge raccoon dog with a yellow body, covered with violet patterns, was lying there. It was Ichibi, but its expression looked a little strange at this time, with a hint of helplessness in its anger. In fact, the reason why Gaara went berserk in the past 2 years was not caused by Ichibi, but because he had to do this to protect Gaara. 2 years ago, Danzo let Rasa inadvertently meet Sarutobi Ikumi, who could freely control the power of the six tails. Since then, Rasa has asked Gaara to train with the third generation and Sarutobi Ikumi. That's when Gaara's real nightmare began. Danzo would not only extract one-tailed chakra from him every once in a while, but even later, they would deliberately beat Gaara to make one-tailed chakra show up on his own initiative, so that they could get more one-tailed chakra. Chapter 184. The Anbu Minister of Sunagakure Village, the third generation. In fact, Rasa was aware of the fact that Danzo and the others extracted a chakra from Gaara's body, but for some unknown reason, he chose to watch on the matter. A kind of connivance formed next to Rasa, and it was under this connivance that Gaara was hurt more and more. Maybe Ichibi helped Gaara in the beginning, just because he didn't want him to harm him. After all, before the seal was released, if the Jinchuriki died, the tailed beast would also die with him. At first, he was afraid of being implicated, but now Ichibi has identified with Gaara, this poor kid, from the bottom of his heart. Just like today, he was the one who took the initiative to help Gaara fight against Sarutobi Ikumi, but because Gaara is too young now, his body has not yet fully developed, and because of the obstruction of the Bagua seal, the power he can unleash is limited. That's why he was defeated so easily by Sarutobi Yiming. If Ichibi can really explode with all his power, he may not be weaker than Ichibi Sarutobi in terms of strength. After all, the strength of six tails is not as good as Ichibi. But now he is indeed no match for Sarutobi Yiming. Boom. Just after Ichibi's power completely disappeared, Sarutobi kicked Gaara away with a kick. What a waste, Sarutobi Yiming said with disdain. Then the dark red energy wrapped around him began to dissipate, and for him now, using the tailed beast chakra was like being driven by an arm. Then he was about to turn around and leave. You could see that he was holding a scroll in his hand with a word printed on it. Then he turned around and prepared to leave. As for Gaara, with one tail sealed on his body, as long as he didn't die, the injuries he suffered would always recover slowly. Sarutobi Yiming disappeared here in a flash. Not long after he left, a silver-haired figure appeared nearby. It was Kakashi, and he was looking down at Gaara, who had fainted on the ground. Perhaps because he was aware of his approach, a weak energy came from his body, and then a ball of yellow sand floated up from the ground, blocking Gaara's front. Kakashi frowned slightly. He felt an unfamiliar energy attached to the yellow sand. He clearly felt that the energy of the yellow sand was not one-tailed, nor was it Gaara's own energy. What Kakashi doesn't know is that this is the power called protection, and it also represents the greatest thing in the world, maternal love. This is the power left to Gaara by his mother Gaara, but perhaps because Gaara has been hurt too much, this power has become extremely weak now. Hey, this is Shukaku who dared to yell at that Kyuubi guy back then. Why is he like this now? Even as Kakashi looked at Gaara carefully, the second tail inside him was not idle either. They are both tailed beasts, and each tailed beast has a strong sense of connection with each other. Kakashi also confirmed Gaara's location, based on the tips from the second tail, in Gaara's consciousness space. After hearing Owa's voice, Shukaku was not surprised. In fact, he had already sensed Matabusa's aura. It's just that he didn't make any announcement. Humph. Facing Owa's provocation, Shukaku snorted coldly, "Why do I need you, a little kitten, to teach me anything I do? Go where you came from, and don't bother me, if you have nothing to do," Shukaku said in a bad tone. Faced with Shukaku's clamor, Owa was not angry, and just opened his mouth, to convey the news to him. Just as the second tail was communicating with the first tail, a figure appeared in front of Kakashi, wearing a black combat uniform, or thin body, and an old face, that looked almost the same as 3 years ago. The person coming, was none other than the third generation. Kakashi's only exposed right eye narrowed slightly, and before he could make any move, a green figure suddenly jumped out, and stood in front of him. It was K. K's face looked a little complicated at this time. Although he had received some news, he was still a little unbelievable when he saw it with his own eyes. The third Hokage of Konoha village is now standing on the opposite side of Konoha. This is really ironic compared to K. The third generation was in a much calmer state of mind at this time. After all, he had made a complete farewell to Konoha village 3 years ago, and it was his 2 disciples who personally pushed him to this point. "Okay, Kakashi." At this moment, a female voice sounded in Kakashi's mind. It was Futamateru. "That Shukaku guy has agreed to us taking this child away, and he won't stop us," Yaolu said. "Well, it looks like I have to thank you a lot, Materu," Kakashi said with a smile. "Humph." Yaolu snorted coldly and said nothing. In fact, the reason why she contacted Shukaku just now was because she was entrusted by Kakashi to convince Ichibi not to riot when Kakashi took Gaara away. In fact, this is just a temporary method that Kakashi thought of. With his current strength, even if Ichibi doesn't cooperate, there will be no problem if he takes it away by force. Light blue chakra appeared on Kakashi's arm. The next moment he waved his arm fiercely, and the invisible wind attribute chakra instantly poured out, covering up the thin yellow ball protecting Gaara's and was blown away. Kakashi then knelt down and put his hand on Gaara's body. At this time, Sanday's pupils shrank slightly when he saw this scene, and then without any hesitation, he began to quickly form seals with his hands. But no matter how fast he formed the seals, he couldn't compare with the current Kakashi. "K, wait for me, I'll be right back." After Kakashi opened his mouth and said this, his and Gaara's bodies suddenly became illusory. The next moment, after a burst of space fluctuations, the two of them disappeared. Silver Fang flash. "Kakashi, have you surpassed?" There was a flash of surprise in the eyes of the third generation when he saw Kakashi disappear, but then he was relieved. After thinking about the name Kakashi was called in the ninja world in the past 2 years, as a disciple of Minato himself, it is not impossible for him to master the Flying Thunder God technique. After all, Kakashi's talent is not weak at all compared to Minato. After a slight hesitation, Sanday stopped making seals. Since Gaara had been kidnapped, it was meaningless for him to fight K now. Aha. Aha. At this moment, several sounds broke through the air not far away. The third generation frowned when he heard the sound, then took out a monkey face mask from his arms and put it on his face. It is worth mentioning that the current position of the third generation in Tsunagakure village is that of Anbu Minister. Chapter 185. He is your uncle, so take good care of him in the future. Inside Mount Myoki, Naraku, who had just come out of Toad Immortal's place, felt 2 powerful auras, one of which he was very familiar with. At this time, he was a little confused. Yes, the person standing in front of him at this time was Kakashi, who had just used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to leave Tsunagakure village. Next to him lay Gaara, who had fainted. After Naraku, who had his eyes closed, felt a powerful energy in Gaara's body. He frowned slightly and said, "Brother K, shouldn't you be bringing the one-tailed Jinchuriki back to the village? Why are you here?" Naraku also heard about the fact that Kakashi and the others invited the one-tailed Jinchuriki to be their guests. He had no objection to this, and Naraku supported any decision made by Tsunade. What's more, he also knew very well that what Tsunade wanted was true peace, which coincided with his inner thoughts. Kakashi here also frowned after hearing Naraku's words. Then he raised his head and carefully looked at the nearby environment, and his brows gradually wrinkled. "This is Mount Mayaboku." When Kakashi was about to say something, Naraku's voice came over. Kakashi nodded slightly when he heard this. "I'll leave this child to you. K is still in Sunagakure village. I'll go there first." After saying this, Kakashi disappeared here in a flash. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu is really a very convenient ninjutsu. Naraku murmured softly, with a rare look of envy on his face. I don't know whether it's because of his limited talent or because he has been studying immortal arts in the past few years, so Naraku still hasn't mastered the Flying Thunder God technique until now. Ugh, it's better to recover your eyes quickly so that at least you can still use Shunkora for a while. Naraku comforted himself in this way. Well, at this moment, a cry of pain sounded from the ground, and Gaara, who had fainted, slowly opened his eyes. Here it is. Looking at the unfamiliar environment around him, a trace of doubt flashed in Gaara's eyes. He endured the severe pain in his body and stood up slowly. When Gaara saw Neo behind, a look of vigilance appeared on his face, and he took 2 steps back to distance himself from him. I have to say that the experiences of the past few years have made Gaara grow up a lot, and now he has a mind far beyond that of his peers. Although Naraku kept his eyes closed, Gaara's movements were still clearly noticed by him. Naraku smiled slightly at this, and the next moment he appeared directly behind Gaara in a flash, and placed his right hand on the shoulder of his young body. "Welcome to Mount Mayaboku, Gaara." Naraku's slightly calmer tone reached Gaara's ears. At this moment, Gaara only felt a huge force coming from his shoulders. This force prevented him from resisting. "Gaara, this guy's much stronger than your 4th Kazekage. Try not to anger him." At this moment, Shukaku's voice sounded in Gaara's mind. "Stronger than that man." After hearing Shukaku's words, Gaara lowered his head and whispered, and a bold idea grew in his mind. "Zio Naraku, come over for dinner quickly." Just at this moment a slightly hoarse female voice came. After Naraku heard this, his expression changed instantly. Just when he was about to run away, a small toad with purple lips and purple hair on its head appeared in front of Naraku. "Haha, hello, Shima. Senin, I suddenly remembered that I have something else to do. This child seems to have troubled you before he has eaten." After saying this, Naraku directly used reverse channeling and left here. "Naraku-chan is really more impatient than Jiraiya," Senin Shima muttered in a low voice, and then she focused her gaze on Gaara in front of her. "You are Shima." Senin's purple eyelids twitched slightly, and she felt an unusual aura from Gaara's body. Just when she was about to say something, "Damn it, aren't you ready to eat? Where did you go?" A toad with green skin came here. It was Fukasaku Sage. Like Shima Senin, Fukasaku Senin also discovered Gaara's unusualness after a slight hesitation. He tentatively spoke. "Son, which ninja village are you from? How come you suddenly came to Mount Mayaboku?" After hearing his words, Gaara's eyes remained alert. After a slight hesitation, he was about to say something. The expressions of Fukasaku Senin and Shima Senin changed at the same time, and there was a hint of shock in their eyes when they looked at Gaara in front of them. "Child, come with me to meet someone." Konoha village, in the land of the Thousand Hands clan. Naraku held a scroll in his hand and fell into deep thought. This scroll was given to him by Toad Immortal just now. What is recorded on it is nothing else but the method of practicing the magic of Mayaboku Mountain. When Toad Immortal met him this time, he didn't tell him any useful information. He just told him to be careful when using magic. Naraku only felt that this time Toad Immortal was testing him. Forget it. Naraku shook his head and decided not to think about it. After putting away the scroll in his hand, Naraku got up and left here. He has no interest in the magic of Mount Myomu at the moment, but even if he is interested, it will be difficult for him to learn the magic of Mount Myomu with just the scroll in his hand. After all, he can't see it now. After much hesitation, Naraku gave up the idea of asking Jiraiya to confirm the contents of the scroll. It's better to wait. Now he just wants to grow his eyes again quickly. Later, after Naraku had a meal with the Senju clan, he used reverse channeling again and returned to Myomu Mountain Point. But as soon as he arrived at Myomu Mountain, he saw a surprising scene. At this time, Gaara was seen sparring with a giant toad that was several times his size. Wow. 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 Balls of yellow sand were floating around Gaara. The next moment, all the yellow sand rushed towards the toad opposite, which was covered in green. The toad on the opposite side was not afraid of the attack at all. It opened its big mouth and spit out a water ball about half a meter in diameter. Boom. The water ball ripped through the air like a cannonball and rushed forward at great speed. Snapped. The next moment, the water ball hit the yellow sand. The huge force caused the water ball to break directly, and the ball of yellow sand lost control and fell to the ground. At this point, Gaara and the green toad also stopped. How about it? This kid is pretty good, isn't he? Just then a familiar voice sounded in Naraku's ears. He is your uncle, so you need to take more care of him in the future. Chapter 186. It turns out you guys are getting serious now. Hidden in the sand village, Hatake. Kakashi, I won't let you leave here so easily today, Sarutobi Yiming, whose whole body was wrapped in dark red energy, said fiercely to Kakashi in front of him. Kakashi ignored this and turned to look at Gai, with only an inexplicable meaning flashing in his right eye. In fact, his and Kei's mission has been completed by now, and the one-tailed Jinchuriki is already in their hands at this time. Kakashi and Gai can completely return to Konoha directly. But it is obvious that they have no such plan at the moment. What Kakashi and Gai were thinking was that since they were here, if they went back without doing anything, it would be the same as coming here in vain. Kakashi and Gai have no good impressions of Tsunagakure village, especially Gai. When he went out on missions in the past few years, he often encountered people from Tsunagakure village deliberately sabotaging their missions. Gai would let them know what a real iron plate was every time. Not to mention Kakashi, not to mention how many ninjas his father killed in Tsunagakure village. He himself once cut off the arm of the 4th Kazekage. Such grudges are irresolvable. One for each. Kakashi whispered, and then a silver short blade appeared in his hand, and then he held the silver blade and rushed towards the thin figure in front of him. Kakashi, your opponent is me. At this moment, an angry shout came from the field. It was Sarutobi Yiming. At this time, his figure turned into a red shadow and rushed towards Kakashi very quickly. Although he was very fast, there was someone faster than him, and a green shadow instantly appeared in front of Sarutobi Yiming. It was Kei. I saw a faint green light flashing on his body at this time. It was the third door of the 8-door dungeon. Opening the door, Konoha's powerful whirlwind. Kei kicked out fiercely, and the next moment, his axe-like right leg tore through the air and kicked Sarutobi Yiming directly in front of him. Kei's movements were extremely fast. Sarutobi Kazumi had just noticed Kei's movements, but the next moment he felt a huge force coming from his body. Boom. Sarutobi Yiming's body flew backwards violently. Kei did not give up this opportunity, kicked his feet on the ground, and his whole body turned into a green shadow and bullied him again. Kakashi has great trust in Gai's strength. At this time, he did not pay attention to his battle with Sarutobi Yiming, but focused on the two figures in front of him. One is a thin third generation wearing a monkey face mask, and the other is also an old acquaintance of Kakashi. He has short black hair and wears a brown jacket on his upper body and an inner layer similar to fishnet stockings. Just now, Eluosha, who received the news, rushed here. Eluosha looked at the familiar figure in front of him, and his face instantly became gloomy. Without any words, Eluosha raised his right hand slightly, and in an instant, a huge ball of gold sand emerged from the ground. Then the gold sand rushed towards Kakashi in front of him like a huge wave. In response, Kakashi narrowed his right eye slightly. Noisy. The next moment, a dark blue electric arc bloomed in Kakashi's hand, and he raised his right hand. The next moment, the silver short blade in his hand was covered by lightning. Crack. Crack, the sound of thunder trembled, and then Kakashi suddenly swung the short blade forward in his hand. Call out. The short blade, engulfed by thunder and lightning, rushed forward at a high speed. The gold sand in front of it was like paper, and was torn open by the short blade. At this time, Kakashi began to quickly form seals with his hands. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. Suddenly, two low shouts sounded on the field at the same time. It was the third generation. At this time, he also threw a shuriken forward. Call out, call out, call out. Hundreds of short blades flashing with blue light instantly appeared on the field, and in front of the short blades, hundreds of shurikens also appeared at the same time. The next moment, the short blades wrapped in thunder and lightning all rushed forward at high speed and instantly collided with the shurikens. But the next scene made the third generation's pupils tremble. Boom, boom, boom. Waves of smoke instantly appeared on the field, and the shurikens released by the third generation all turned into a burst of smoke and dissipated the moment they came into contact with the short blade. But those short blades were still intact and rushed forward. Using the same ninjutsu, the third generation was crushed by Kakashi. Wow. But the next moment, a wall made of gold sand stood in front of the two of them, intercepting all the silver short blades. It was Alyosha who took action. With gloomy eyes, he was about to say something. Noisy. There were trembling sounds of thunder, and a flash of blue light was seen, and then the indestructible golden sand wall cracked like a landslide. The next moment, a figure holding a silver sword and glowing with blue light appeared in Alyosha's sight. It was Kakashi. The silver sword in his hand is made of the same material as the Black Tang sword in Naraku's hand, and it is the beheading sword. A beheading sword can create two magical weapons. Even Zabuza would be pleased to know this. On the field, Kakashi broke through the golden sand wall without any hesitation and took the lead in rushing towards Rasa with a knife. Thunder slash. A low shout came from Kakashi's mouth, and then a dazzling thunder burst out from the silver sword. Dense thunder and lightning climbed onto the blade, and the sound of thunder trembled. Holding the long sword in his hand, Kakashi was like a man and a sword at this moment. He followed him like a shadow and moved forward very quickly before Asa could react. A bolt of lightning had already arrived in front of him. Stab it. It seemed that even the air was split open, and a lightning blade shot out from the silver sword. In an instant, the blade came to Alyosha. His pupils were full of shock. At this moment, he had no time to summon the golden sand for defense. He could only kick his feet on the ground and keep retreating. However, no matter how fast he was, he could not compare with the sword light. In just a moment, the sword light hit his body, but the next moment his body turned into a ball of gold sand. Gold sand clone. In response, Kakashi narrowed his right eye slightly, and before he could make any move, a shadow appeared in front of him. Kakashi looked up and saw a large amount of gold sand floating in the air. Not only that, he felt the ground beneath his feet begin to shake violently. Fire. Escape. Dragon fire bullet. At this moment, a hoarse voice came, and then Kakashi felt a flash of red appear in front of him. A huge fireball with a diameter of more than 3 meters visible to the naked eye rushed towards Kakashi. It seems you have started to take it seriously. Chapter 187. A fairly tacit cooperation. Boom. The huge, hot fireball on the field rushed straight towards Kakashi, and his body was immediately submerged in the next moment. Almost at the same time, all the gold dust floating in the air fell down, forming a sealed space around Kakashi. Rasa once again joined the third generation and stood together. There was no expression of joy on their faces. They knew that such a move could not cause any harm to Kakashi, who had mastered the Flying Thunder God technique. Swish. At this moment, a burst of space fluctuations came, and a blue figure appeared behind Alyosha and the other two. It was Kakashi. Under his feet was a kunai engraved with the mark of the Flying Thunder God, which Kakashi had prepared in advance. Unlike the special kunai that Minato likes to use, Kakashi's kunai looks no different from an ordinary kunai, except that there is an extra Flying Thunder God technique on it. Ruai stick, strong wind. At this moment, a hoarse voice came. It was the third generation. He was seen holding an iron rod transformed from the 8th demon. He was waving his hands very fast, and the phoenix type chakra was continuously transmitted towards the iron rod. Call. A fierce gust of wind rushed towards Kakashi. Kai. Kakashi was not afraid of this at all. He held the silver sword in his hand and exerted force. In an instant, a silver sword light tore through the air and rushed forward. Even under the attack of the strong wind, the silver sword light was still unstoppable and directly tore it apart. Wow. A ball of placer gold suddenly appeared and intercepted the silver sword light. At the same time, a golden spear made of placer gold rushed towards Kakashi at great speed. Golden placer spear. Alyosha opened her mouth and shouted. The golden spear was like a long golden dragon. It was extremely fast and arrived in front of Kakashi in the blink of an eye. Kakashi's face froze at this, and he felt a powerful energy on the spear. Crack. Crack. The next moment, dazzling thunder bloomed on the silver sword in his hand. The sound of thunder trembled, and dense thunder condensed on the blade. The lightning flashed as if dancing. Thunder slash. Kakashi held the long sword in his hand and swung it again, and a lightning sword light shot out. Boom. With a loud noise, the lightning blade and the golden spear collided together. Almost instantly, the spear formed of placer gold scattered directly and turned into a ball of placer gold floating in the air. Swish. Then Kakashi's figure suddenly disappeared. Not good. At this moment, the expressions of Alyosha and Sandai changed at the same time. Without any hesitation, the two of them quickly retreated. At the same time, Alyosha stretched out his hands and condensed into a ball of sand gold to block him in front of him. Although their reactions were quick, Kakashi's movements were even quicker. At this moment, he suddenly appeared in front of Alyosha, and the silver long knife filled with blue thunder and lightning in his hand struck directly towards him. As for the golden dust in front of it, Kakashi simply ignored it. Now, to put it mildly arrogantly, Kakashi feels that these gold dusts no longer pose a threat to him. Sand gold is absolutely unstoppable to his attack. The fact was just as he expected. The moment the silver sword came into contact with the sand gold, the latter disintegrated like earth. ZHI. ZHI. The blue lightning flashed, and after disintegrating the placer gold, the long sword continued to rush forward without losing strength. Alyosha's pupils shrank at this. He never thought that the placer gold he was once so proud of would become so vulnerable. You must know that he has not been idle in the past few years, and his strength has improved compared to 3 years ago. A lot. Coupled with the arm given to him by Beiju, Alyosha felt that his strength had surpassed the previous generations of Kazekage. But even with such strength, he was vulnerable to the young man in his early 20s. Alyosha felt unbelievable. Although it is a bit absurd, it is indeed the case. The long knife wrapped in thunder and lightning fell directly on Alyosha's body. Boom. Then Alyosha's body flew backwards. It can be seen that there is a ball of placer gold with an abnormal color on its chest. Different from the usual gold placer that exudes golden light, this ball of placer gold looks a bit dark yellow. Although this ball of placer gold looks small, if you feel it carefully, you will find that the density inside is very high, and even the weight is more than 10 times heavier than ordinary placer gold. This ball of placer gold was continuously compressed by Alyosha using chakra. Different from ordinary placer gold, this kind of placer gold is more powerful and has stronger defense. Just because of the amount of Alyosha's own chakra, this kind of placer gold cannot be used by others. There is not much that can be controlled. Alyosha was planning to use it as a killing move, but he didn't expect to be forced out by Kakashi. After seeing his attack blocked, Kakashi's expression remained normal, and he was not surprised at all. Although his strength has improved greatly in the past few years, Kakashi does not think that he is invincible in the ninja world. He knew that his strength was still far behind. If nothing else, he was far inferior to his teacher Minato in terms of his mastery of the flying thunder god. Just when Kakashi was about to take a step forward and continue attacking Rasa, a thin figure stood in front of him. Exactly 3 generations at this time, Kakashi no longer had any emotional fluctuations when facing the 3rd generation. He could only see him quickly forming seals with his hands and then let out a low drink. Thunder escape. Thunder tiger kills. Kakashi's hands burst into dazzling blue light, and then the blue light surged forward, turning into a thunder wolf formed by thunder and lightning in front of him. A violent aura emanated from the thunder wolf, and then the thunder wolf rushed straight towards the 3rd generation in front. Earth. Escape. Earth formation wall. The hoarse voice of the third generation came, and after quickly forming seals with both hands, he slapped the ground with one hand. Then, after the ground shook violently, an earth wall quickly rose from the ground. Boom. Just when the earth wall had just risen, the Thunder Wolf had already hit it. The violent thunder attribute chakra directly smashed the earth wall into pieces, and then continued to gallop towards the third generation in front with unabated force. The third generation's pupils were shocked at this, and now he can feel what Alyosha felt just now. The third generation is best at the nature and form changes of ninjutsu, but now it seems that the current Kakashi is no worse than him. Then the third generation dodged the impact of the Thunder Wolf. Call out, call out, call out. The next moment, a sound broke through the air, and small balls made of placer gold rushed towards Kakashi. Sand. Ball impact. Ratters. Figure appeared in Kakashi's sight again. In this battle, the two shadow level powerhouses Luosha and Sandai cooperated quite well. Luosha was obviously the main offensive force, while Sandai became the auxiliary. Chapter 188 Sister Tsunaga Cure villages going to war with Konoha. While Kakashi was fighting the third generation and the others, Kei and Sarutobi Kazuma on the other side were involved in a fierce battle. It can be seen that Kei's whole body is enveloped by a layer of green energy at this time. He has opened the sixth door among the 8 doors, the Jingmen. In this state, Kei's physical power was enhanced 10 times. Boom, boom, boom. The airwaves rolled, and Kei, who was wrapped in green energy, began to move quickly, launching a fierce offensive towards Sarutobi Yiming, who was wearing a tailed beast's coat in front of him. Boom. Suddenly, Kei kicked forward fiercely. As the air shook, the strong axe-like leg hit Sarutobi Yiming's body hard. Boom. The huge force caused him to fly backwards quickly, but the next moment a green figure appeared in front of him again. Boom, boom, boom. Kei launched a high-speed combo at Sarutobi Ikumi, and finally kicked him into the air, towards the peacock. An angry shout came from Kei's mouth, and he clenched his hands. A violent force came from Kei's body, and then Kei began to punch quickly. The friction between the high-speed fist and the air produced a stream of flames, and then these flames rushed forward at great speed with a powerful shock wave formed by the punch. Visible to the naked eye, countless burning flaming fists appeared in the air, and then all of these fists fell on Sarutobi Yiming in the air. Boom, boom, boom. Loud noises were heard, and Sarutobi Yiming, who was continuously attacked by flaming fists, swayed, and his body was briefly stranded in the air by the strong shockwave. If it weren't for the protection of the tailed beast's coat, the current Sarutobi Yiming would definitely not be able to withstand this wave of attacks. Even now, there are many burnt spots on his body. The dark red-tailed beast's coat also became tattered. Boom. Finally, when Kei stopped punching, Sarutobi Yiming's body fell straight from the air to the ground. Haha. Sarutobi Yiming, who landed on the ground, gasped for air, and looked directly at Kei in front of him with a pair of resentful eyes. Today he feels the shame even more intensely than he did 3 years ago. It's okay to be defeated by Kakashi. After all, he has been called a genius since he was a child. Although losing to him is unpleasant, it is not unacceptable. But now, he was defeated by a guy who didn't even know a single ninjutsu, and he didn't even have the strength to fight back. Shame. Endless shame completely ignited Sarutobi Yiming's anger, and his reason was gradually swallowed up by anger. Just when Sarutobi Yiming was about to explode, a figure in black robe suddenly appeared beside him. After feeling the coming person's breath, Sarutobi Yiming's body shook imperceptibly twice, and then he gritted his teeth to suppress the violent energy in his body. 3 years have passed, and sure enough, there's still no big progress. A hoarse voice came from inside the cloak, and then an arm appeared to pull the cloak down, and a familiar young face appeared on the field. It was Danzo. At this time, he looked no different from 3 years ago, but the aura on his body had become much stronger, even compared to when he was alive. Danzo raised his hand, and looked at Kei, who was surrounded by green energy in front of him, with a fierce look on his face. Not only Sarutobi Kazuma, he also remembered the incident when he was violently beaten by Kei 3 years ago, because he had met him once before, and he also guessed that Danzo would appear here. Kei was not surprised at this time. A Danzo with immortality, and a Jinchuriki who can control the power of tailed beasts. Kei's face gradually became serious. Swish. Just when K was hesitant to open the 7 gates, a blue ray appeared next to K. It was Kakashi, who was surrounded by thunder and lightning. Aha. Aha. Just after Kakashi arrived here, Ratsa and Sandai stood beside Danzo one after another. However, Alyosha looked a little embarrassed at this time. You could see crack-like wounds appearing on his body. This was Alyosha's last line of defense, the placer gold armor. The placer gold that can be attached to his body is specially condensed by Alyosha with chakra. Its defensive power is stronger than the previous ball of placer gold, but even that was broken by Kakashi's sword skills. The 3rd generation was the same at this time. The black combat uniforms on their bodies were torn in many places, and there was dark red blood stained on them. However, this may be because they all had 1st generation cells transplanted into their bodies. No matter it was Alyosha or Sandai, there were no obvious wounds on their bodies. Okay K, it's time for us to go back. Kakashi turned to K beside him and whispered. K nodded lightly at this. Although he and Kakashi were not afraid of any of the 4 people in front of them in terms of combat power, K also knew that he was still a little behind after all. Although he can now open the 7th gate of the 8 gates of Dungia, he cannot maintain that state for too long and is not suitable for a protracted battle. And these people in front of them are not ordinary people, especially Danzo, who has a body of dirt. It is impossible to kill him completely without using the sealing technique. Another point is that he and Kakashi's mission this time has been completed. Now they are staying in Sunagakure just to test the strength of Sunagakure village. There is no need to stay here now. K then lifted the 8 gates and the green energy surrounding him slowly dissipated. Wow. At this moment, a huge ball of placer gold appeared in the sky. It was Ratsa. Maybe it was because Gaara was his son and he didn't want to just let Kakashi and the others leave like this. Boom. The huge amount of placer gold directly submerged the bodies of Kakashi and both of them. But at this time, Alyosha's face showed a hint of disappointment. Through the chakra in the placer gold, he had sensed that Kakashi and the 2 had completely disappeared here. Damn. Konoha, Luo. Shaq cursed angrily, and his face turned ferocious the next moment. The news was released that Konohagakure openly sent people to kidnap the tailed beasts from my Sunagakure village and notified all the ninjas in the village to gather together. Luo. Sha said to Danzo on the side with a gloomy face. After 3 years of getting along, the cooperation between Alyosha and Danzo, the elder, has become more and more tacit, and Alyosha has also begun to delegate some power in the village to him. Yes, Danzo nodded heavily, and then the 4 of them left here together. A remote location in Sand-Hidden Village. An old woman with white hair and wrinkles on her face was sitting on a recliner with her eyes closed and meditating. A squeak. Then a man with the same white hair stepped into the room, and a look of anxiety appeared on his face. Sister, Sunagakure village is going to war with Konoha. Chapter 189. The descendant of Mount Myomu, Gaara. Konoha village, the home of the Senju clan. Naraku, who had just returned from Mount Myoboku, frowned. He never imagined that he just wanted Gaara to be left alone at Mount Myoboku for a while, but by the time he returned, he had become Fukasaku Sage's apprentice. According to his seniority, he was still his master uncle. Regarding this, Naraku felt a little weird. He didn't understand why Fukasaku Senin would accept Gaara as his disciple. Gaara, who has the status of a disciple of Fukasaku Sage, undoubtedly has an extra layer of protection. As long as Jiraiya is there, Konoha will not be able to treat him as a real prisoner. Naraku can still accept this. After all, even if Gaara is really arrested in Konoha, Tsunade will not treat him as a prisoner, based on his character. But one thing does worry Naraku. After all, Gaara is a Jinchuriki. When Obito and the others are about to take action, they will definitely take the lead in attacking Gaara. But now that Gaara is a disciple of Fukasaku Senin, Myobakayama will definitely not sit idly by and ignore it, and Konoha, because of his relationship with Jiraiya, will definitely be involved. Forget it, anyway, because brother K and sister, they will have to face Obito and the others sooner or later, Naraku murmured, and then stopped thinking about it. At this moment, an energy full of life appeared around him. Under this energy, the surrounding flowers and plants began to grow rapidly. Naraku once again turned on the sage mode. Gaara was accepted as a disciple by Fukasaku sage, which made Naraku realize again that the ninja world today is completely different from that in the original work. The unknown is always the scariest thing, so he needs to recover his eyes quickly. After all, it's time to put some things on the agenda. Hokage's office. At this time, Tsunade frowned slightly, and she also couldn't figure out why Miyabukayama accepted Gaara, the one-tailed Jinchuriki, as his successor. That's right, it's the heir. Tsunade knew more about the three Holy Lands than Naraku. The three Holy Lands generally rarely signed psychic contracts with others. Basically, there was only one person in a generation. Point of course, there are sometimes exceptions. For example, Jiraiya, Minato, and Naruto all signed psychic contracts with Myomu Mountain Point, but except for Jiraiya, neither Naruto nor Minato is considered a descendant of Mount Myaboku, and even Jiraiya can only be considered a half-descendant. But Gaara, who was accepted as a disciple by Fukasaku sage, is different. Now he is the most authentic descendant of Mount Myaboku. If he walks in the ninja world in the future, he alone will represent the entire Mount Myaboku. Tsunade really couldn't figure out why Mount Myaboku valued Gaara so much that he even called Jiraiya to Mount Myaboku to assist Gaara in his training for a period of time. Forget it, he's just a child who hasn't grown up yet. Headaches are a thing of Naruto's generation, Tsunade murmured softly. Then she continued to lower her head and deal with the documents on the table. 3 days later, inside the Hokage building, Narashikaku, Akimichi Choza, Yamanaka Keiichi, Inokapan, all the clan heads of the three major families were present. Not only them, but also Hinata Hisashi, Uchiha Fugaku, and representatives of other families in Konoha. There are also other Jounin level people in the village. Today, they all came here. Jiraiya was also called back from Mount Myaboku by Tsunade, and was standing next to Tsunade. Tsunade, who was standing in the chief position, looked around everyone. Now, all the power of Konoha has been completely controlled by Tsunade, and all the major families have recognized her as the fifth Hokage in their hearts. Tsunade then turned to Shikaku and gestured. Just yesterday, news came that the Kingdom of Wind has summoned a large number of ninjas, and are rushing towards the border. Shikaku spoke slowly. Is Tsunagakure village preparing to go to war with Konoha? The speaker looked old, with a wrinkled face under his grey hair, but his eyes were full of anger at this time. Tsunagakure village is really bullying people. They have deliberately destroyed many of our Konoha missions in the past few years, and now they dare to start a war with us. Aren't you afraid that we will kill them directly? Someone said indignantly below. Most of the people talking at this time were Jounin who often went out to perform missions. They had long-standing grievances against Tsunagakure village, and they had long been unable to tolerate the fact that the other party often sabotaged their missions without any reason. After they spoke, Tsunade turned her attention to several other representatives of the big families. From the beginning, Konoha village was composed of various large and small families, so most of the ninjas in Konoha are based on family units. There are also civilian ninjas, but there are really not many. So if we really want to go to war with Tsunagakure village, the support of these people cannot be missing. Although Tsunade can forcefully dispatch them, it is always better to let them come out willingly. Facing Tsunade's gaze, the representatives of the major families all nodded without exception. Now they also understood that there would no longer be any resistance to Tsunade in Konoha village. Moreover, in recent years, the strength of the village has greatly increased, and people of Kakashi's generation have begun to rise to prominence, especially Kakashi. The name of Jinga Shining has been widely spread throughout the ninja world. There is also Konoha's Blue Beast, Shunshinshisu, who has also made a name for himself. Coupled with the two shadow-level powerhouses, Tsunade and Jiraiya, they believed that no matter what, Tsunagakure village could not be Konoha's opponent. And some people know that there is another killer in Konoha who is not weaker than Kakashi, and that is Uzumaki Naraku, who killed Danzo and forced the third generation to abdicate. Although he is now blind for unknown reasons and has not been active in the ninja world for several years, some people know very well that geniuses cannot die like this. Isn't it just blindness? The people who master the most advanced medical ninjutsu in the entire ninja world are in Konoha. They believe that Uzumaki Naraku will definitely grow up. After getting everyone's support, Tsunade issued one order after another in the Hokage building. Kakashi was appointed as the captain and took the lead in leading a group of elites to the border. The Tsunagakure village faced off and must be intercepted outside the border. Inside the village, people are concentrated, waiting for notification. If necessary, all will be dispatched to completely solve the sand-hidden village. In the evening, before it got dark, Kakashi had already led a group of people to set off first. The lineup of this team can be called luxurious. The Blue Beast, the Matama, the genius of the Uchiha clan, Shunshin Shisu, and the elites of the Anbu, Hinata Fire, and Uchiha Maple Fire. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190. Only by bathing in fire can one be reborn. Late at night, when Kakashi and the others were rushing to the border, Naraku also left the Senju clan's clan and came to the Uchiha clan's clan. After several days of consideration, and after receiving the news today that Konoha was preparing to go to war with Tsunagakure village, Fugaku finally made up his mind. Only by bathing in fire can one be reborn. Today's purge means rebirth for the current Uchiha clan. Fugaku's face was determined. Not long after, Naraku, who had short red hair, came to Fugaku under the leadership of Itachi, Chief. Fugaku, you, just. When Naraku was about to say something, his expression suddenly changed. The moment he entered the room, he felt several more breaths outside the house. Fugaku and his son also noticed these strange and familiar auras. The former's expression changed, and then a strong aura emanated from his body. How dare these people be so arrogant? Naraku felt helpless at this. Forget it, Chief Fugaku. There are some things that need to be done anyway, so what if we let them know some news? Or, it doesn't matter who strikes first. Call out, call out, call out. Just as Naraku finished speaking, dozens of piercing sounds came through the air, and dozens of Kune were seen passing through the window and attacking Naraku and the others at high speed. Clang, clang, clang. There was a clear sound of metal collision, and a golden light flashed in the dim room. Then all the Kune were blocked and fell to the ground. Art fire escape ho fireball. At this moment, several low shouts came from outside the house, and Naraku, who was in the room, immediately felt a scorching high temperature rushing towards their faces. The next moment, the red heat wave directly flooded the house. Naraku and the others seemed not to notice the scorching heat, allowing the flames to flood their bodies, but perhaps no one noticed that a burst of white smoke appeared in the house that was flooded by flames. Did you make it outside the house? The leader, Uchiha K, frowned slightly. You must know that the person inside this house is the patriarch of their Uchiha clan, and the most outstanding genius of this generation in the clan, Uchiha Itachi. As for Uzumaki Naraku, he was just a blind man, and was ignored by Uchiha K. Can these people be eliminated so easily? Uchiha K couldn't believe it, just when he was about to send someone to check inside the house. Aha, aha. Aha! Several figures sprang out from behind at high speed and appeared behind Uchiha K and others. Puff, puff. There was a splash of bright red blood. Due to the extremely fast speed of those people, many people on the Uchiha seaside had no time to react before they fell to the ground clutching their necks. Only the stronger ones reacted quickly to avoid the attack, but they were all more or less injured. Uchiha K was also injured on the shoulder. At this time, he was covering his left shoulder and kept retreating. Red blood could be seen flowing from his fingertips. At this time, his eyes had turned scarlet, and 3 black Magatama were slowly rotating inside. The 3 Magatama Sharingan is already the limit of ordinary Sharingan. There are not many in the Uchiha clan who can reach this level, and everyone is a Jonin level existence point. Although his own strength was good, Uchiha K felt that he could not escape death today. Swish. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. The other person's eyes were also scarlet, and the 3 black Magatama exuded powerful pupil power. Art fire escape ho fireball. A low shout came from behind him, and someone was already chasing him. Uchiha K's face was heavy. He knew that it would be difficult for him to escape today. However, in order to gain a chance of survival, he would not give up resistance just like this. Call out, call out, call out. In an instant, 3 shurikens were thrown out by him, and the shurikens drew a curve in the air. Clang, clang, clang. Then the shurikens collided with each other and changed direction, rushing towards the person in front from 3 angles. He himself also burst out with chakra, trying to break out with the help of the shuriken's offensive. But obviously, he failed. His 3 shurikens were easily blocked by the man in front, and then his body also fell into a pool of blood. They are both elites of the Uchiha clan, and they are good at the same fields. Uchiha style shuriken techniques may be of great use to other enemies, but facing Uchiha clan members who also have Sharingan, it has no effect. After these 2 people dealt with Uchiha K, they left here in a flashpoint within the Uchiha clan. The battle between the clan leaders and the elders has completely begun. Although Fugaku was determined to eliminate the elders this time, he still softened his heart when faced with some women and children, so he issued an order to eliminate all the elders, except the women and children. No one left alive. In a secret room, Naraku and Fugaku appeared here. At this time, they were sitting opposite each other in front of a table. These were the 2 of them's true bodies, and what was seen, being submerged in the sea of fire, was just their shadow clones. Naraku supports the line of elders who clean up the Uchiha clan. In his opinion, they are just a group of people who are as greedy for power as the 3rd generation. They are a group of people who have ambitions that do not match their abilities in the original work. The reason why the Uchiha clan came to ruin had a lot to do with Fugaku, the clan leader, but the group of old guys also played an indispensable role. In fact, with Fugaku's own power and Itachi's main Gekai Sharingan activated, he could directly eliminate the elders, but Fugaku always felt that it was not safe enough. That's why Naraku was invited here, in order to prevent some accidents from happening. But in the end, Fugaku was very happy with his decision. As early as during the day today, Fugaku had secretly ordered that, except for some people who stayed to cover, all the women and children on his side were moved to a safe place. So now, on his side, there are only ninjas with fighting capabilities left outside the Uchiha clan's clan. Like the Hyuga clan, as one of the 2 most powerful families in Konoha, the entrance to the Uchiha clan's clan also looks very luxurious. Originally, Uchiha clan guards were stationed here all year round. But I don't know, but it's very unusual. The guards stationed here disappeared and were replaced by a group of people wearing animal masks, including a tall white-haired man guarding here. Late at night, the surrounding streets became increasingly quiet. Chapter 191 Irresistible Force. Konoha Village, in the clan of the Uchiha clan. At this time, Uchiha was engaged in a civil war. The patriarchal line led by Fugaku and the elder line were completely at odds, and both sides started taking action without any worries at this time. The great elder's home. The 3 elders were all gathered here, but their expressions were not very good at this time. In terms of combat power, their elders were already far behind Fugaku and the others. They originally thought that taking the lead might gain some advantage, but unexpectedly, Fugaku had already anticipated their thoughts. At this time, almost all the troops they sent out were wiped out. There is no other way. Now the Great Elder can only order the remaining people to gather here. He was worried that, if they acted separately, the remaining combat forces would probably be defeated one by one. By then, the strength he had finally accumulated over the years might be exhausted. Brother, let me take people there. I want to dig out the eyes of this boy Fugaku. The impetuous 3rd elder spoke first, his tone full of murderous intent. In response, the Great Elder waved his hand slightly, and then said with a heavy face, "Don't worry, they will be here soon." Also holding a high position, the Great Elder had already guessed Fugaku's next plan. The reason why the other party breaks down their own side one by one is to gather them together and catch them all in one fell swoop. This can avoid the greatest casualties for one of the parties. If it were the Great Elder himself, he would choose the same approach. Uchiha Fugaku, let me lead the Uchiha, the elder murmured in his heart. Just as the Great Elder had guessed, it didn't take long for Fugaku and Itachi to lead dozens of elites here. This time Fugaku's team is led by Itachi, who is known as the most outstanding genius in Uchiha's generation. Itachi's strength has far surpassed Fugaku's clan leader among the entire Uchiha clan. Only Shisu could compare with him. Under the leadership of Itachi, their side quickly surrounded the entire area, and then Itachi alone took the initiative to attack the area where the Great Elder and others were. Swish. Itachi was seen dressed in black, and the silver sword in his hand shone coldly under the night sky. As his body flickered, Itachi kept approaching inside. Art fire escape ho fireball. At this moment, a low shout sounded under the night sky, and a figure appeared. Then the man opened his mouth and spit out a ball of red flame. The next moment, the flame turned into a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 3 meters. Under the silent night sky, the red fireball emitted a dazzling light, and a scorching high temperature came. At this moment, Itachi, who was standing in front of the fireball, did not flinch, and quickly raised his hands. The next moment, fire release, a powerful fireball technique. Using the same move, Itachi opened his mouth and spit out an even larger ball of fire boom. The next moment, a violent sound appeared on the field, and 2 fireballs collided heavily. The fireball spit out by Itachi, visible to the naked eye, gained the upper hand and directly suppressed the fireballs on the opposite side. Swish. Suddenly, a figure burst out from the darkness. The kunai in his hand emitted a cold light and stabbed directly towards Itachi. The next moment, the kunai stabbed directly into Itachi's chest, but the expected blood did not appear. Itachi's body suddenly turned into several black crows and flew around. It's an illusion. The face of the man holding the kunai changed. The 3 black magatama in the scarlet pupils trembled slightly, and a look of confusion appeared on his face. With his Sharingan activated the whole time, he had no idea when he was under the Jinjutsu, but even if he didn't understand, he had no chance to know. Buff. Suddenly, the man felt a chill on his neck, and then a splash of bright red blood splashed out. Well, after a cry of pain, he reached out and covered his neck and fell to the ground. In the dim moonlight, red blood could be seen flowing from his fingertips. It was only now that Itachi's figure was slowly revealed. He was holding a kunai in his left hand. At this time, the kunai was stained with a dark red. Uchiha Itachi, you are such an incredible genius. Suddenly a voice of praise came from the darkness. It was the Great Elder. At this time, he and several people were standing in front, looking at the team led by Itachi from a distance. With such an outstanding genius, it would be great if you could be on our side, the Great Elder said with a trace of regret on his face. But soon this feeling of regret was replaced by a touch of cruelty. Then he raised his hand gently. It's your turn to take action, Uchiha. At this moment, a figure exuding a cold aura came from the darkness. Call out, call out, call out. This man had already begun to attack Itachi before he was fully exposed, and several shurikens rushed towards Itachi from all angles. Itachi was not afraid of this at all. The Scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan emitted a dazzling red light in the dark night. After a simple observation, he had seen through the movement trajectories of all shurikens. He stretched out his arms, and several shurikens appeared in his hands instantly. Then Itachi exerted a slight force, and pointed the shurikens in his hands towards different directions. The direction was thrown. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, several metal collision sounds were heard, and sparks could be seen appearing in the air, which were caused by the collision and friction of shurikens. Swish. At this moment, the figure in the darkness rushed out at high speed with a long knife in his hand. His eyes were also scarlet, and 3 black magatama were slowly rotating. The person who came was none other than Uchiha. Boom. A powerful energy wave came, and a crimson energy flashed out from Uchiha's hand, and then wrapped around the long knife in his hand. It is the Uchiha flame sword technique. Looking at Uchiha rushing towards him, Itachi's expression did not change at all. Ninjutsu of this level could no longer cause any harm to him. It's time to end this farce, Itachi murmured in his heart, and then his eyes condensed, and an extremely powerful pupil power burst out from his eyes. Under this powerful eye power, all the Uchiha clan members were deeply shocked. They had only seen such intense eye power in Shisu, who was known as the clan's top master. The Great Elder on the opposite side also noticed this unusually powerful pupil power. Is it him too? A bold idea grew in his mind. Perhaps to verify his suspicion, Itachi's scholar eyes began to change as his eye power exploded. I saw 3 black magatama in his eyeballs spinning at a high speed. The next moment, the black Magatama disappeared, replaced by a black triangular windmill pattern point. The change in Itachi's eyes caught the attention of everyone on the field, and they felt an irresistible power in the new pair of Sharingan. Chapter 192 Kagura's Inner Eye. Within the radius. The Sharingan that surpasses the three Magatama. What kind of power is that? On the field, whether they were the clan leaders or the elders, their eyes were all focused on Itachi. To be precise, it should be on his eyes. For a long time, most of the tribe thought that the three Magatama Sharingan was the ultimate. It was Itachi who showed them a new pair of Sharingan. There is no doubt that these eyes are more powerful. Just when they were wondering what kind of power these eyes possessed, a dazzling fiery red light appeared on Itachi's body. I saw 2 lines of blood and tears streaming down from Itachi's eyes, and then fiery red energy filled his body. The next moment, these energies formed a giant with an upper body skeleton that was more than 3 meters tall. The seemingly thin skeletal giant actually contains an extremely powerful force. Susanoo. Itachi slowly opened his mouth and gave a low drink. Uchiha, who was rushing towards Itachi, also stopped because of the appearance of the red Susan. Itachi's eyes, whose body was shrouded by Susanoo, were scarlet red, exuding endless coldness. He looked at Uchiha and all the elders in front of him, even though these people were from the same Uchiha clan as him. But their pursuit of power has long been blinded by desire. If they are allowed to develop, then only destruction awaits. Uchiha. Itachi was cold and ruthless at this moment. Despair. Itachi raised his feet and walked forward, the fiery red Susanoo always covering his body. Mangekyou Sharingan. You're not the only one with this, Itachi. At this moment, Uchiha, who was standing in front of Itachi, raised his head and made a hoarse voice, and then a powerful life force burst out from him. Then a pair of eyes identical to Itachi's appeared in Uchiha's pupils. It can be seen that in Uchiha's eyes, the original 3 Magatama pattern disappeared and was replaced by a black pattern similar to a dart. Mangekyou Sharingan. I didn't expect that Uchiha also opened these eyes. Fugaku, who was watching the battle from behind, had a look of surprise on his face when he saw Uchiha also activate the Mangekyou Sharingan. In his opinion, although Uchiha's talent is good, there is still a big gap compared with top talents like Itachi and Shizu. Normally, it is impossible for Uchiha to activate the Mangekyou Sharingan. It's because Fugaku thought of Miho, who died a few days ago, and made a bold guess in his mind. His expression changed almost instantly, and he looked at the great elder opposite. The 3 Magatama Sharingan exuded murderous intent. As the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, Fugaku had actually come into contact with records about the Mangekyou Sharingan a long time ago, and he also roughly knew the process of opening the Mangekyou Sharingan. However, after knowing this information, he chose to conceal it. It can be said that in the entire Uchiha clan, apart from him, no other person will know about the records of the Mangekyou Sharingan. Although Fugaku didn't know how the elder obtained this record, he knew one thing very well, that is, he must not let the clan know about this matter, otherwise the Uchiha clan would definitely be destroyed. Fugaku's eyes gradually turned cold. Swish. At this moment, a figure walked out of the darkness, and beside him, it was Naraku stood. Like Fugaku, Naraku was also very surprised at this time. According to the information he learned, the elders did not have any outstanding talents. The most powerful elder was only slightly stronger than the elite Jounin. It is no exaggeration to say that Itachi, who now has the Mangekyou Sharingan activated, can definitely sweep the entire elder lineage by himself. But now there is actually someone on the other side who has activated the Mangekyou Sharingan. It seems things are getting interesting. Naraku murmured softly. Kagura's eyes open. Naraku secretly thought to himself, and then with him as the center, any energy fluctuation within a radius of 10 kilometers would be clearly sensed by Naraku. Since becoming blind, Naraku's ability to move freely relies on his extremely powerful perception. Perhaps it is precisely because he uses chakra to sense the outside world all day long that his perception ability has been increasing. Now Naraku can sense energy fluctuations within a kilometer around him even without opening Kagura's inner eye. As for the opening of Kagura's inner eye, the originally powerful perception was instantly amplified 10 times, and this was not Naraku's limit. Naraku had a feeling that, if he continued to use his strength, the range of perception could still be expanded. However, he did not do this. Although the range could be expanded, the sensitivity of the perception might be reduced. For him, the range of 10 kilometers was just right. Within this range, Naraku could clearly perceive any energy fluctuations. There is another person hiding. Under Naraku's perception, in addition to the two people in front of Itachi and Uchiha, there was also a powerful aura hidden in the dark. This aura was very similar to the pupil power, emitted by Uchiha. After a slight hesitation, Naraku whispered a few words into Fugaku's ear, and then he left here in a flashpoint. He was going to deal with the guy hiding in the dark. As for Uchiha, who had activated the main Jiki Sharingan here, Itachi alone was enough to deal with him. Although Uchiha also opened the main Jiki Sharingan, in Naraku's view, he was far inferior to Itachi in terms of eye power and eye control. On the field, after seeing Uchiha also opened the main Jiki Sharingan, Itachi had a hint of surprise in his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. Even if Uchiha activates the main Jiki Sharingan, he cannot shake his determination, let alone stop his sword-wielding arm. Under Itachi's control, the flaming Susanoo stretched out his arm formed by rows of skeletons, and the huge arm flew directly towards the right Uchiha in front of him. Uchiha's pupils trembled slightly at this, and he exuded a violent aura without moving, and then a group of silver light appeared around him. The next moment, the silver light became brighter and brighter, and then a row of rib-like skeletons formed around Uchiha's body. The silver skeleton was like a circular cover, covering Uchiha's body inside. "Susanoo, you!" Uchiha shouted in a cold tone, and you could see 2 lines of blood and tears flowing from his eyes. At this time, Uchiha seemed to be undergoing some kind of torture. His normally normal facial features became a little distorted, and even his breathing became a little short. Boom. At this moment, a loud noise came, and the fist of the fiery red skeleton struck the silver skeleton. Click. Almost instantly, several clear cracks appeared on the silver skeleton, as if it would shatter in the next moment. Chapter 193. Brother, rest in peace. On the field, Uchiha looked at the silver skeleton that was about to shatter in front of him. A trace of anger flashed in his eyes. In addition to anger, there was more of a kind of resentment. He looked up at Itachi in front of him, and Fugaku at the back of the crowd, feeling infinite hatred towards the two of them in his heart. Just before Itachi and the others came here, his grandfather, the great elder of the Uchiha clan, told him one thing, that is, his mother, Uchiha, was killed by someone sent by Fugaku. Uchiha, who had been dazzled by hatred, didn't think much about it. He chose to believe his grandfather's words. Ugh. Suddenly, Uchiha let out a cry of pain, and then hatred-filled eyes erupted from his eyes. The silver skeleton, which had many cracks visible to the naked eye, began to grow. Almost instantly, a silver whisker that was not weaker than the fiery red whisker appeared on the field. "Itachi, Uchiha, and your father, you all have to die here today," Uchiha said viciously. Itachi frowned slightly at this, then he flashed and separated his body from Susanoo. Although he didn't know why Uchiha had so much hatred for him, he didn't think much about it. No matter what the reason was, the two sides had reached this situation, and no matter how much he said, it would be in vain. Today, the internal fighting among Uchiha is endless. Boom. On the field, after Itachi's body separated from Susanoo, the fiery red Susanoo did not dissipate. Instead, he raised his fist and attacked the silver skeleton in front of him. Itachi's body rushed towards the great elder. Boom. Upon seeing this, Uchiha here wanted to intercept, but was blocked by fiery red Susan. Damn it. Uchiha cursed secretly. For Uchiha, who had just awakened the main Jeki Sharingan a few days ago, it was already very difficult for him to master the power of Susan. Moreover, this was also his first time using Susan, and he was not proficient in it. Facing the attack of the flaming red Susan, Uchiha could only control the silver Susan to hurriedly resist. He also tried to separate from Susanoo, but unsurprisingly he failed. Uchiha didn't think much, he just thought that he was not familiar enough with the control of Susanoo, and then he concentrated on controlling the silver Susanoo and the red Susanoo to fight. If Uchiha didn't die today and could grow up in the future, then he might know that the reason why a genius is called a genius is because he is different from ordinary people. The expression of the great elder on the other side changed instantly after seeing Itachi rushing towards him. Although his strength is not weak, it is simply not enough compared to Itachi at this time. Stop him. Without any hesitation, the great elder immediately gave a low shout and directed the people on the side to step forward to stop Itachi. At the same time, he kicked his feet on the ground and prepared to retreat. But the next moment, a flash of scarlet appeared in his sight, and almost instantly, he raised his head and let out a scream. At this time, he only felt as if his limbs were penetrated by some sharp weapon, and a sharp pain was transmitted to his nerves. Magic, the art of shackle resistance. Itachi, who was galloping over, let out a low shout, his scarlet eyes exuding chilling power. Normally, the elder who also possesses the 3 Magatama Sharingan has some resistance to illusions, and it is difficult for him to fall victim to ordinary illusions. However, Itachi used this move with the Manjaki Sharingan, which directly crushed the opponent in terms of eye power. In addition, the great elder was already timid before fighting, so he fell into Itachi's illusion so easily. Aha! Aha! At this moment, 2 figures rushed toward Itachi with sharp blades in their hands. Likewise, the eyes of these 2 people were also scarlet. The 2 men attacked Itachi from 2 directions, one on the left and one on the right. The 2 knew very well that, if they were one-on-one, they would definitely not be Itachi's opponent, so they chose to do it together. It's not just the 2 of them, there are also several people behind them who have begun to form seals. Fire. Escape. The art of dragon fire. Art. Fire escape. Oh fireball. After. To low shouts, crimson flames rose, and then a huge fire dragon and a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 3 meters rushed towards Itachi at the same time. Itachi's eyes narrowed slightly at this, and then his hands began to form seals quickly. Art fire escape. Oh fireball. Almost instantly, Itachi had completed the seal. He put his hand to his mouth, then opened his mouth and spit out a stream of red flames. The red flames formed a huge fireball in the blink of an eye. As Itachi continued to output chakra, the size of the fireball became larger and larger, and then rushed forward. Boom. The next moment, the fireball collided with the fire dragon rushing forward at high speed. For a moment, a large amount of red flames illuminated the night sky. At this time, multiple figures can be seen walking through each other, and the 2 sides started a chaotic battle. Clang, clang. At this moment, 2 crisp metal collision sounds came, and Itachi was seen holding a kunai in each hand to block the attack of the 2 silver blades. The gazes of 3 pairs of scarlet eyes met together in the air. The next moment, the 2 people felt that the force blocking their attacks suddenly loosened, and then the figure of Itachi disappeared in front of them. What? Just when they were stunned, a scream came out. The 2 people turned their heads and saw that the great elder was covering his chest with his hands and swaying back. Red blood flowed from his chest. The disappeared Itachi was now standing in front of him with a line of dark red blood on the kunai in Itachi's hand. Big brother. At this moment, a loud roar came from the crowd, and the 3rd elder stepped forward with an angry look on his face, reaching out to support the eldest elder's shaking body. You. Damn. Just. When the 3rd elder shouted at the top of his lungs. Call out. Itachi flicked one hand, and the kunai in his hand rushed forward. You could see several burning detonating charms on top of the kunai. Boom. The next moment, a violent explosion sounded, and then Itachi only saw the gloomy face of the 3rd elder appearing in front of him. As for the great elder, he had fallen to the ground at this time, and you could see the appearance on his body suffered multiple wounds. Brother, rest in peace. The 3rd elder lowered his head and murmured softly. Although he had blocked the explosion with the elder's body, he did not feel any guilt at all. Clang, clang, clang. At this time, the sound of metal collisions continued to be heard on the field, and the 2 sides were completely fighting together. Boom, boom. Loud noises came from not far away, and the 2 skeletons of Susanoo could be seen fighting together, perhaps because he had just opened the main Gekkai Sharingan. Masao seemed to be at a disadvantage at this time, with many cracks appearing on the silver skeleton whiskers. On the opposite side, the fiery red Susan seemed not to have been harmed in any way, and his whole body was filled with dazzling red light. Chapter 194 Characteristics similar to Amaterasu. After the death of the Great Elder, the Third Elder temporarily succeeded him as the leader of the Elder line. However, at this time, he retreated to the back of the crowd, with a look of anxiety on his face. Why hasn't that Arthur come here yet? The Third Elder turned to the Second Elder beside him and said. At this time, the Second Elder also had an ugly face. Compared to the Third Elder, who had a fiery personality, he felt a strong uneasiness in his heart. He didn't know why he felt like the entire Uchiha clan was being plotted against. Boom, boom. On the field, Itachi was constantly shuttling through the crowd with a kunai in hand. With his strength, almost no one could stop him. At this time, he was like Ashura, constantly harvesting the lives of others. With Itachi's continuous outbursts, the situation on the field became increasingly clear, and their side had an absolute advantage. Not long after, except for those who were killed, all the remaining elders were under control. As for the Second Elder and the Third Elder, they were also directly killed by Itachi. Only one left. Itachi turned his head to look at the nearly broken silver skeleton over there, and then he hurried towards that direction in a flash. Soon he came here, and the red Susanoo enveloped him again. Itachi is the same existence as Naraku. Both of their Susanas are extremely special. Their Susanas can fight separately from the main body, but the control is controlled by the main body itself. Multitasking has advantages and disadvantages. The advantages that it can fight on two fronts, which is equivalent to adding a powerful comrade. The disadvantages that once the main body is separated from Susanoo, the power of Susanoo will be reduced partially. But overall the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. After Itachi returned to Susanoo, he controlled the flaming Susanoo to punch fiercely. The fist, which was as big as a basketball, looked very powerful. Boom. The skeleton's fist landed heavily on the silver skeleton opposite, and the huge force directly caused the silver skeleton's body to fall backwards. Boom. 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 The silver skeleton, which was already full of cracks, completely fell apart after this blow. Shao, whose figure was revealed, was breathing heavily, and the two bloodstains on his face were still a little moist. Although the Mangekyou Sharingan is extremely powerful, it has a very fatal weakness. That is, it consumes too much, and long-term use will cause vision loss. At this time, Shao was only using the first stage of Susanoo, but he felt that his body could no longer bear it, and a sharp pain came from his eyes. In fact, this has something to do with the fact that he just opened the Mangekyou Sharingan. Like Itachi, he also opened the first stage of Susanoo, but his consumption was not that great. Of course, this is also related to Itachi's strong endurance relation. After Shao's silver Susanoo completely collapsed, Itachi also took back the fire red Susanoo. Looking at Shao in front of him with cold eyes, after a slight hesitation, Itachi did not solve it immediately. He wanted to see what kind of abilities Shao's eyes, who also had the Mangekyou Sharingan, contained. This is still very attractive to Itachi, who has just opened the Mangekyou Sharingan. Call out. Itachi raised his hand and threw a kunai towards Shao. On top of the kunai were several detonating talismans with sparks shining on them. Facing the attack of the detonating talisman, Shao's pupils trembled when he raised his head. The distance between the two of them was already close, and Itachi made a sudden move. At this time, the detonating talisman had already arrived in front of Shao. It seemed like it would explode in the next moment. Not only that, at this time Itachi had already completed the seal with one hand, and then shouted, "Fire release," the powerful fireball technique. He opened his mouth and spit out a huge red flame, and then the flame turned into a huge fireball, and rushed forward at high speed. Boom. The distance between the two sides was only a few meters, and the fireball landed on Shao almost in the blink of an eye. The huge impact kicked up a puff of smoke. But at this moment, Itachi's expression suddenly changed. He felt an unusually powerful energy approaching him. Without any hesitation, Itachi kicked off his feet and jumped back. The next moment, the fiery red Susanoo skeleton appeared and enveloped his body. At this moment, something like a giant vine stretched out from the front and struck towards Itachi. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the giant vine-like thing slammed into the fiery red Susan. At this time Itachi also saw clearly what this thing was. It looks like something made of soil. It looks like a vine, because when it moves, it looks like a vine that keeps growing. The ground roars. A low shout came from the front, and Uchiha's figure appeared there. It seemed that neither the detonating talisman nor the fireball caused any harm to him. At this time, he saw something like an earth wall surrounding his figure, and there was a large area of charred black on top of this earth wall. This is the ability of your left eye. Itachi looked at Uchiha in front of him and murmured. He could see a trace of blood and tears flowing out of Uchiha's left eye. Boom. Boom. At this moment, the sound of the ground shaking suddenly came, and the ground under Itachi's feet began to shake violently, and then vine-like mud pillars attacked Itachi. If we attack from the ground, Susanoo will be unable to defend now. Itachi secretly thought in his mind. Then he kicked his feet on the ground, and began to move quickly, to avoid the attacks of those mud pillars. The sound of the earth sounds like it's a trick similar to Amaterasu. Is it manipulating the energy of the earth element? While Itachi was dodging the mud pillar's attack, he was mentally analyzing the true ability of Uchiha's left eye. In his opinion, the earth ringing should be a power that can control the earth element, similar to his Amaterasu. But Amaterasu has the characteristic of never extinguishing, but he doesn't know what the characteristics of the earth element summoned by the earth ringing are. Boom. At this moment, Itachi, who was unable to dodge, was bombarded by the mud, but because of the protection of the fiery red skeleton, he did not suffer any obvious pillar damage. What? Suddenly a cry of pain came from Uchiha. The continuous bursts of eye power made his body extremely exhausted, and even as spirit collapsed. The remaining pupil power in his body was not enough for him to continue to maintain the state of kaleidoscope. The next moment, the dark pattern in his eyes disappeared and returned to the state of 3 megatama. But even if his eyes returned to the 3 megatama, the mud pillars protruding from the ground were still attacking Itachi. At this time, Itachi also noticed the changes in Uchiha. Looking at the mud pillars in front of him that kept attacking him, he murmured softly in his mouth, characteristics similar to Amaterasu will never stop. Chapter 195 Obito's growth. In the Uchiha clan's clan, just when Itachi was testing Ucho's main Gekai Sharingan ability, Naraku also met an old acquaintance. Although he couldn't see it with his eyes, Naraku had already guessed the identity of the person in front of him from the familiar aura. Uchiha Obito, and he was not the only one. Naraku sensed that there was a person exuding a familiar aura next to Obito. This aura was very similar to the person who had opened the main Gekai Sharingan before. If Naraku could see with his eyes at this time, he might be able to see that the person in front of him was Uchiha Sasuke, whom he had met once before. Uchiha Sasuke, the eldest grandson of the Great Elder, is Uchiha Sasuke's half-brother. Standing next to him was Obito, who was dressed in black robes and wearing a tiger-striped mask. Looking at Naraku with his eyes closed in front of him, Obito felt an unusually strong energy in him. Haha, I really didn't expect that a blind person could grow to this point. Uzumaki Naraku, you are really surprising, Obito spoke, with a hint of sneer in his slightly hoarse voice. In response to this, the corners of Naraku's lips slightly raised. The next moment, a violent aura emanated from him, and 8 golden chains sprang out from his back at the same time. In just an instant, the 8 chains completely destroyed Obito and Sasuke surrounded. Growing up. Speaking of this, I feel like you have grown a lot, Mr. Madara. Naraku murmured. As soon as Obito appeared, Naraku felt an unusual energy in him. For Naraku, that energy was extremely familiar to him. It was the first generation cells with extremely strong vitality. Although Obito himself had been transplanted with a large number of first generation cells, and even half of his body was composed of first generation cells, at that time he had 2 kinds of energy fluctuations. One is the first generation cells in his body, and the other is Obito's own energy. But this time, although Naraku also felt 2 energy fluctuations on Obito, the difference from before was that this time, one energy was about to disappear. Naraku sensed that the energy that was about to disappear was the first generation cell, and Obito's own energy became much stronger than before. Humph. Obito snorted coldly, and there was a hint of surprise on his expression under the mask. He didn't expect that Naraku could sense the changes in his body so easily. Even if the Uzumaki clan's perception was very powerful, it wouldn't be that powerful. Mr. Madara, Master Fei, why does he call you Mr. Madara? Zuosuke asked on the side, his tone full of doubts. Obito was about to say something to this call out. In an instant, two golden lights appeared in front of him, which were Naraku's diamond chains. Although the chains today are not as thick as before, if you look carefully, you will find that the chains are much more solid now. Each chain contains powerful energy, which is the result of Naraku's continuous compression of chakra. It is no exaggeration to say that one chain now consumes more chakra than the previous 7 chains combined. The golden chain was like a flexible snake, wrapping around Obito's body. Obito's face was expressionless, and only his right eye was scarlet. Then a wave of space fluctuations came, and then Obito's body instantly became illusory, and the chain passed directly through his body. Divine power is blurred, no matter when it comes to it. This move is very troublesome. Naraku understands this very well. Although his strength has increased a lot in recent years, without his eyes recovering, Naraku knows very well that he cannot retain or defeat the opponent. But fortunately, his target this time is not Obito, but Master Fei, save me. At this moment, an exclamation came, and Obito's expression changed when he heard the sound. Then he turned his head and looked in the direction of Zuosuke, only to see that he was already firmly bound by 3 golden chains, facing towards drag him in Naraku's direction. Without any hesitation, Obito, whose body became insubstantial, quickly moved in the direction of Zuosuke. However, although his speed was very fast, it was still far inferior to that of the Vajra chain. In the blink of an eye, Zuosuke had been dragged to Naraku's side beside. Well, Zuosuke, who was tightly bound by the chains, let out a cry of pain. Perhaps he was stimulated. At this time, Zuosuke began to resist, and blue chakra could be seen exploding around him. Facing Zuosuke's explosion, the golden chain only shook slightly twice, and then bound the opponent tighter. Be honest. At this moment, Naraku murmured softly, and then he could see that among the 3 chains that were binding Zuosuke, the golden light on one of the chains began to slowly dissipate, and then a black spell appeared, covering the entire chain. Fire escape, storm dance. Suddenly, Obito's hoarse voice reached Naraku's ears. Then Naraku felt that the originally stable space in front of him suddenly fluctuated. I saw that the space in front of Naraku became distorted, looking like a space vortex, and then Obito opened his mouth and spit out a series of spinning fire snakes. The combination of the fire snake and the space vortex instantly formed a huge flame tornado. The next moment, the flame tornado began to expand and swept towards Naraku. In response to this, Naraku kicked his feet on the ground and retreated quickly. At the same time, 2 golden chains instantly appeared in front of him. The next moment, invisible wind chakra burst out from Naraku's body and headed towards the 2. A chain surged up. The chain covered with wind chakra instantly changed color, as if it were invisible white. Then the 2 chains filled with wind attribute chakra began to swing. Kai. Invisible wind blades burst out from the chains. The wind blades tore through the air and rushed towards the flame tornado ahead. Nowadays, Naraku has a deep control over the nature and form of chakra. He also accidentally thought of and experimented with the use of diamond chains to release ninjutsu. On the field, several wind blades and flame tornadoes collided together, and the huge impact caused a gust of wind. Suddenly, Naraku seemed to sense something and turned around sharply to one side. At the same time, a kunai appeared on his right hand and was thrown forward. Clang. The sound of metal colliding came. It was Obito, and he appeared behind Naraku with a chain in his hand. You can still have such a strong sense of fighting, even when you can't see it with your eyes. Uzumaki Naraku, you are really surprising. Obito's hoarse voice came. Naraku frowned slightly at this. If Obito hadn't made a huge noise when he waved the chain and noticed it, his situation might be in danger now. Chapter 196, Long-Standing Grudges. On the field, at this time, Naraku frowned slightly, and the current situation was not good for him. Although he can sense everything with his strong senses, because he cannot see with his eyes, it will be difficult to detect if Obito is close to him. After using virtualization, Naraku didn't guess that the reason why Obito was able to appear behind him silently just now was because he used hollow. When in the virtual state, his entire body will be transferred to the Kamu space, so he cannot feel any breath of Obito in the real space. Call out, call out, call out. 3 golden chains rushed out and rushed towards Obito in front of him at great speed. The next moment, the chains passed directly through his body. At this moment, Naraku's heart suddenly sounded alarm, and he once again lost his sense of Obito. He used his divine power again. Naraku murmured, and then began to calm down and sense this area carefully. Although he cannot sense Obito in Kamu space, he will sense Obito as long as he appears in real space. What he has to do now is to capture the moment Obito appears in real space and then launch an attack on him. However, it is difficult to achieve such an effect. You must know that even the induction of Kaguya's inner eye is delayed. If Naraku's eyes have recovered now, it will be almost the same. With the powerful perception ability of Kaguya's heart eye and the dynamic vision of Sharingan eye, the combination of the two can cope with Obito's unpredictable divine power. Ugh. Just when Naraku was concentrating, suddenly, a cry of pain came over. The next moment, Naraku felt a pressure coming from the chains that restrained Uzumaki. Without any hesitation, chakra surged through Naraku's body, and just when he was about to tighten the restraints, his expression suddenly changed. Call out, call out. The next moment, 3 golden chains appeared in front of him, and then the chains began to entangle with each other, and then formed a golden shield to block Naraku's front. Boom. There was a loud noise, and a thick piece of wood hit the golden shield. The huge impact caused the shield to shake violently. Click, click. At this moment, the sound of broken chains was heard, and then an energy full of resentment appeared on the field. It is indeed the main Gekkai Sharingan, Naraku murmured in his mouth. Although he couldn't see it with his eyes, he felt an unusually powerful pupil power, and this eye power is somewhat similar to the eye power emitted by the man who fought Itachi before. Naraku guessed that there must be a blood relationship between the two people, and they were direct relatives. 2 pairs of Mangekyou Sharingan, if fused together, that's a pair of eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, he secretly thought in his heart. It was only then that he realized why Obito cared so much about this person, Uzumaki Naraku. At this moment, a voice full of resentment came, and it was Uzumaki who spoke. At this time, his eyes were scarlet, and patterns similar to windmills appeared in his eyes. Uzumaki's eyes were full of resentment and jealousy when he looked at Naraku. As the eldest grandson of the Uchiha clan elder, Uzumaki has attracted much attention since he was born. He has carried too many people's expectations, but due to his personal talent, these expectations have turned into disappointment. So the ones Uzumaki presented the most were the geniuses, Itachi Uchiha, Shisu Uchiha, Kakashi and Naraku. The better the genius Uzumaki is, the more resentful he is. You all deserve to die. Suddenly, Uzumaki shouted angrily, and then a line of blood and tears flowed from his right eye, and his powerful pupils burst out instantly. Using the ability that comes with the kaleidoscope, Naraku's face changed slightly when he noticed an explosion of pupil power. Each pair of kaleidoscopes has different abilities, so Naraku didn't dare to be careless before confirming the abilities of Uzumaki's eyes. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, several sounds of breaking through the air suddenly sounded, and then Naraku felt that something was approaching him very quickly. Without hesitation, under Naraku's control, the golden chain flashed out and blocked his way. Boom, boom, boom. Loud noises were heard, the golden light on the chain trembled, and a strong impact was felt on the chain. This is Suddenly, Naraku seemed to sense something, and his figure began to retreat further. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of explosions came one after another. The airwaves rolled, and you could see a deep pit appearing where Naraku had just stood. The impact of the explosion caused the area to be covered in smoke. You can make objects explode. A breeze blew by, and after the smoke cleared, a red-haired figure was revealed. At this time, he was surrounded by golden chains, and there were many burnt black spots on the chains. Then the chain shook, revealing Naraku's figure. At this time, he frowned slightly, mentally analyzing the ability of Sasuke's Mangekyou Sharingan. Swish. At this moment, a figure appeared next to Naraku. With black hair, the Uchiha clan emblem printed on his clothes, and two deep grooves on his face. The person who came was none other than Itachi. It's over there. After sensing Itachi's arrival, Naraku secretly thought to himself, and the chakra that was about to explode in his body was suppressed by him. Sasuke, did he even activate the main Gekkai Sharingan? Itachi, who had just arrived here, was the first to see Zuosuke with scarlet eyes, and a look of shock appeared on his face. Originally, Zuosuke was surprised that Zuosuke had the main Gekkai Sharingan, but he didn't expect that Zuosuke also had the same eyes. There is no doubt that the main Gekkai Sharingan is difficult to open. In the history of the Uchiha clan, there are very few people who can open the main Gekkai Sharingan. After Itachi opened the main Gekkai Sharingan, Fugaku told him all the records of the Uchiha clan about the main Gekkai Sharingan. Itachi learned that in the entire Uchiha clan, only Madara and his younger brother Uchiha Raizuna had succeeded in modern times. Kaleidoscope turned on. Of course Obito counts, but no one knows he is still alive. And in this generation, excluding Naraku, he and Shizu were the only two people who successfully activated the kaleidoscope. But now both Zuoji and Yaoshio turned on the kaleidoscope, which made Itachi feel very strange. He guessed that there must be something fishy in it. Itachi. At this time, when Zuosuke saw Itachi coming here, his pupils trembled, and he was also extremely resentful towards Itachi. The eldest son of the clan leader and the eldest grandson of the great elder. Their very similar identities inevitably lead to comparisons, but no matter what aspect, Itachi completely beats him. So Zuosuke has already had a grudge against Itachi for a long time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197. Uchiha Itachi is so cruel. Swish. Obito stood next to Zuosuke in a flash. He waved his hand to stop Zuosuke, who wanted to continue. For Obito, now is not the time for a decisive battle. He is here just to destroy the Uchiha clan faster. Although Obito was a little dissatisfied with the result of this internal fight between Uchiha, the destruction of the elder lineage still reduced the Uchiha clan's population a lot. Another point is that Zuosuke has activated the main Gekkai Sharingan, which can be regarded as an unexpected gain for Obito. Swirl. Amaterasu. Just when Obito raised his head and was about to say something, he saw Itachi's scarlet eyes. Then a black flame appeared on his and Zuosuke's bodies. This is. Obito frowned under the mask, and he noticed a familiar aura on the black flames. Boom. Without any hesitation, Obito put his hand directly on Zuosuke's shoulder, and then his eye power exploded, and his divine power was fully activated. What? Although Obito was very fast, Zuosuke, who had poor resistance and temperament, still let out a cry of pain. He felt a strong burning sensation in his body, and this feeling continued to expand. Ignoring Zuosuke's shouting, Obito used all his strength to activate Kamu, and then their two bodies instantly became illusory. The Uchiha clan must completely destroy this sinful clan next time, Obito secretly thought to himself, and then his and Zuosuke's bodies disappeared here. Itachi, what happened to the person who activated the main Gekkai Sharingan? After confirming that Obito had left here, Naraku immediately asked Itachi. He asked Uchiha who was fighting Itachi. Itachi was slightly stunned by this, and then said, Uchiha has been killed by me, and my father should have sent someone to dispose of his body. A slightly heavy tone came from Itachi's mouth. Naraku didn't say anything else, turned around and left here directly. It would be difficult for an ordinary person to kill his own clan members with his own hands. So even Itachi felt a little uncomfortable at this time. But Naraku didn't care about this. He knew that today's ending was the best ending for the Uchiha clan. He didn't know how many times better than the annihilation of the clan and the original work. After leaving here, Naraku first went to find Fugaku. After telling Fugaku his guess, he left the Uchiha clan's territory. He believed that Fugaku would take good care of Uchiha's Sharingan. Outside the clan, Naraku, who left the clan, appeared here. After a simple communication with Jiraiya, they left here together the next day. Two guards wearing clothes with the Uchiha clan emblem appeared at the door of the Uchiha clan. They looked no different from yesterday. Inside the Hokage's office, Fugaku, who was supposed to be in charge of the overall situation in the clan, appeared here at this time. At this time, he was reporting something to Tsunade with a respectful look. Tsunade looked down at the list in her hand with a heavy expression. It contained the list of everyone from the elders of the Uchiha clan last night. Whether they were killed in battle or captured, including the name of Uchiha Sasuke was taken away. They were all recorded on this list. The reason why Fugaku provided this list to Tsunade was for one purpose, which was to make Tsunade understand that the entire Uchiha clan is loyal to Konoha. And Tsunade obviously understood Fugaku's intention. In fact, Tsunade has always had great trust in the Uchiha clan since she came to power. This can be seen from Shizu, who holds an important position in the Anbu. The Uchiha clan and the Senju clan were once the two clans who joined forces to establish Konoha. Nowadays, the internal problems of the Uchiha clan have been completely resolved. Tsunade is also very happy. This means that she, the 5th Hokage, has controlled all the forces in Konoha village at this time. At this point, she has surpassed the 3rd Hokage. As for Minato, he only reigned for a year, and his control over the village is not even as good as the 3rd Hokage. But Minato's personal charm is very strong. If he is given a few years, maybe he can also completely control the village. While Fugaku and Tsunade were talking here, a big event was happening in the Uchiha clan territory. In the civil war between the Uchiha clan last night, many people in the Elder clan died, but some people surrendered and chose to be loyal to Fugaku. There are also people here who are direct relatives of several elders. Fugaku ordered these people to be imprisoned until he had time to deal with them. But now someone has dealt with these people for him. In a dungeon in the clan's land. A figure walked out of the dungeon with black hair and 2 deep grooves on his face. It was Itachi. His hands were covered in blood, and red blood was dripping on the ground. Itachi, you, the guard at the door's face changed suddenly when he saw this scene. When he was about to open his mouth to say something, Itachi's figure had disappeared from his sight. After much hesitation, the man walked into the dungeon to check it out, and then walked up with a gloomy expression. Itachi Uchiha, what a cruel heart. In the land of the Thousand Hands clan, after settling the matter with the Uchiha clan, Naraku became leisurely again. In fact, he was leisurely. He still had some things that he needed to do urgently, which was to recover his eyes. In the battle with Obito in the Uchiha clan's territory, Naraku could feel that he was at a clear disadvantage. Although Naraku still has a trump card that he has not yet used, he has indeed lost a large part of his combat power. After losing his Sharingan. At this time, Naraku was sitting cross-legged by a small river, which was the edge of the Thousand Hands clan. Suddenly, a strange energy appeared on Naraku's body. This energy is full of rich life breath. It can be seen that the flowers and plants around Naraku are also affected by this energy and begin to grow crazily. Naraku turned on the sage mode again to speed up the recovery of his eyes, but after a while, Naraku's brows wrinkled. Although he could feel his eyes slowly recovering in sage mode, the recovery process was very slow. If this was the only way, Naraku wouldn't know how long he would have to wait to recover his eyes at this time. Naraku looked embarrassed. He had already reached this point and didn't want to give up, but if he couldn't recover his eyes in a short time, he felt that he might not be able to wait that long. Would you like to try this trick? Suddenly, Naraku seemed to have thought of something, and his frown began to relax. Chapter 198. We also want to have fertile land. Shadow clone technique. In the Thousand Hands clan, Naraku formed a seal with one hand and shouted lowly. Boom, boom. A burst of white smoke appeared on the field, and then 2 shadow clones appeared. Maybe it's because Naraku is in sage mode at this time, and all the shadow clones he summoned now have red lines on their faces, and the shadow clones are also in sage mode. The shadow clones were already connected to the main body, so without Naraku saying anything, they just flashed. Each found an area and started taking action. I hope the shadow clone won't disappoint me. Naraku murmured in his mouth, then closed his eyes and continued to use Senjutsu chakra to speed up the recovery of his eyes. Shadow clone is a very powerful ninjutsu. In Naraku's view, the value of this ninjutsu is no worse than that of ordinary S-level ninjutsu. In some aspects, it can even be compared with ninja like Kaguya Shingon. compared with technology point. Although the shadow clone separated from the main body is not strong, it has an irreplaceable advantage. That is, it can feed back the memory and the status of the shadow clone to the main body point. Most ninjas will choose to use shadow clones to gather information, so that they can not only obtain information, but also ensure their own safety. But this is only the most basic way to use shadow clones. For some people who are born with a large amount of chakra, shadow clones are nothing more than a cheating artifact. Just like Naruto in the original work, he was able to create his own ninjutsu like the spiral shuriken. This was largely due to the shadow clone ninjutsu, including how to use the sage mode in the later stage. Naruto used the ability of shadow clones to share their status, to defeat Pain and the battle point. This time Naraku thought of this method. Although he was not sure whether it was really feasible, he decided to try it. If it is really effective, the recovery speed of his eyes will be accelerated by more than 10 times. After all, Naraku also has a lot of chakra. It is no exaggeration to say that in the entire Konoha, except for Kushina, Naruto, and Kakashi, these three have the jinkriki of the tailed beasts in their bodies. Naraku's chakra carats are the largest. Even Uzumaki Kushina, who has pure blood, is not as good as Naraku today in terms of her own chakra capacity. The border of the Fire Nation, several elites led by Kakashi have arrived. They settled down near the border for the time being, and then Kakashi ordered that he and Shizu each lead a team to the front to collect information, while the others waited for orders here. Aha. Several figures shuttled through a dense forest, the leader of which was Kakashi with silver hair and a black mask on his face. Behind him were three figures, namely Yamato, Hinata Kori and another Anbu personnel. In fact, this time, except for a few Jounin in the village, most of the people led by Kakashi were Anbu people. After several years of growth, Kakashi's name of Jinga Shining has long been spread in the ninja world, and everyone in the Anbu admires their powerful minister. A group of 4 people quickly walked through the jungle, and soon they crossed the border of the Land of Fire, and entered the country of Kaguya. Here, the 4 of them separated to find out the news. The information they received earlier was that Tsunagakure village had sent people to sneak into the kingdom of Kaguya, and their main force was guarding the border of the kingdom of Wind, waiting for news. Tsunagakure village. After everyone else left, Kakashi murmured softly, and a sharp light flashed in his exposed right eye. Although the reason why Tsunagakure village took this action was mainly because he and Gai brought the one-tailed Jinchuriki back to Konoha, the main reason was because of the small actions that Tsunagakure village had been making behind the scenes in the past few years. In addition, both the third generation and Danzo have defected to Tsunagakure, so the conflict between Konoha and Tsunagakure has long been irreconcilable. At this time, Kakashi had a feeling that the war might be about to begin. Rin. A trace of recollection flashed in Kakashi's eyes. When he thought of the war, he thought of his companions who died in the Third Ninja War. Tsunade-sama, I hope you are right, Kakashi murmured in his heart, and then he left here in a flash. Although he and Yamato chose to act separately, Kakashi had already left the mark of the Flying Thunder God on several of them. If anything unusual happened, he would arrive at the scene as soon as possible. On the other side, at the border of the Kingdom of Wind, just as Kakashi was leading people to inquire about information in the Kingdom of Kaguya, Shizu here had also led people to sneak into the border of the Kingdom of Wind. Their purpose was to find out the movements of Tsunagakure village's main force. Along with Shizuoka, Uchiha Plefire, and a Jounin named Hinata Teru. After arriving at the border, Shizu, as the captain, ordered the 4 people to be divided into 2 teams, and they acted separately to explore the information of Tsunagakure village. Among the 4, he and Kei were the strongest, so he took Hyuga Teru and Kei took Uchiha Plefire. As one of the 5 major ninja villages, Tsunagakure village does not have an advantage in terms of military strength, but their number of ninjas is between 10,000 and 20,000, but most of them are genin. It would be good to have more than 1,000 jounin. In the future, the 5 major ninja villages will join forces to form a coalition of 100,000 ninjas. Among them, the largest number of ninjas will be Kumogakure village, which is good at developing military power, followed by Konoha and Iwa ninja. As for Tsunagakure and Kirigakure, they are at the bottom among them. This time, in order to recapture Gaara, Rasa also brought out nearly 1/3 of the ninjas in the village. Of course, he brought with him all Jounin and Chunin. As for the genin who had just graduated, Rasa did not let them die. With a huge population of more than 2,000 people, they are currently stationed at the border of the Kingdom of Wind, waiting for orders from the 4th Kazakage Rasa Point originally. Most of the ninjas in Sand Hidden Village were a little confused by Alyosha's order this time. After all, we were in a period of peace now, and they didn't want another war to break out. And the reason why they came was simply because Rasa was the 4th Kazakage, and they did not dare and could not disobey the Kazakage's orders. However, when they came to the border of the Kingdom of Wind, their inner thoughts slowly changed. One step further from the border of the Kingdom of Wind, they entered the territory of the Kingdom of Sichuan. Here they could see the dense jungle and patches of green grass ahead. The vibrant scene in front formed a significant contrast with their country of wind filled with yellow sand. Point at this moment, everyone in Sunagakure village began to support their Kazakage's decision from the bottom of their hearts. We also want to have fertile land. Chapter 199 Konoha, prepare to face the wrath of my Sunagakure. At the border of the Kingdom of Wind, the place where Sunagakure village is stationed, is in a tent. Alyosha, who was sitting in the main seat, looked heavy and his expression gradually turned gloomy. He never thought that Konohagakure would be so courageous, rushing directly to their Sunagakure village and kidnapping a Jinchuriki. This was something Alyosha had never thought of. Although because of Gaara's death, his attitude towards Gaara has never been very good and can even be a little bad at times, but it is undeniable that Gaara is indeed his child, and he is also the first Jinchuriki of Sunagakure village. For a long time, for the Sunagakure village, which was not very strong, a Nibi was regarded as one with high-end combat power. When wars occurred in the past, a Nibi would always be thrown into the battlefield. So this time Alyosha was really angry. Although he knew the gap between Sunagakure village and Konoha village, he still chose to bring people here. Alyosha turned his head and looked at the people sitting beside him. Danzo and several others. If it was just him, then Rasa would definitely not be so reckless. Although he is very confident in his own strength, there are many masters in Konoha village today, and the number of shadow level masters is several times that of Sunagakure. Even with the addition of Danzo in the third, Alyosha still felt a little unsettled, so just in case, Alyosha made various preparations. At this moment, a burst of laughter rang out in the camp. Alyosha heard the sound and went away, only to see a naked man with pale body emerge from the ground. It was Beiju. Alyosha and others were not surprised by Beiju's arrival. They knew that Beiju was here to deliver news. Lord Rasa, Kumogakure and Iwa Ninja Village have agreed to your proposal, but one thing is that Sunagakure Village must take the lead. They will only choose to send troops after confirming that you really want to go to war with Konoha. Beiju said to Alyosha with a playful look on his face. Rasa's face darkened when he heard this. Although he had thought that Kumogakure and Iwa Shinobi would not easily send troops, he did not expect that their 3rd generation Tsuchikage and 4th generation Reikage's hearts would be so dark. They said that they would only send troops if they saw their Sunagakure village actually going to war with Konoha. Alyosha knew very well that it was just a rhetoric. If they really waited until their Sunagakure village went to war with Konoha, at that time, the two families may send troops, but it is not clear who they will send troops to deal with. By that time, Sunagakure and Konoha would go to war, and it would not be impossible for Kumogakure and Iwa Ninja to take the opportunity to sneak attack on them. Alyosha's face turned extremely ugly for a moment. Now he is in a dilemma. There is no doubt that there is no benefit for him to choose to go to war with Konoha village now, but if he is allowed to return to Sunagakure village like this, he will not be willing to do so. Lord Alyosha, don't worry about this. Although Kumo Hidden Village and Iwa Ninja Village have chosen to wait and see, there is another ninja village that has chosen to become an ally with Sunagakure village. Beiju's words made Alyosha's expression change, and he looked up at him in disbelief. Mist Hidden Village? Alyosha asked tentatively. Although Alyosha didn't know much about Kurigakure village, He also knew that it was a village similar to Sand Hidden Village, and that the internal management of the village was very bloody, and it was even called Blood Mist. Point to this. Beisetsu nodded lightly. Yes, Lord Rasa, the 4th Mizukage of Kirigakure village. Yagura has already begun to order the gathering of troops, and soon they will rush to the border to conquer Konoha with Sunagakure village. Bay. Ju's words rekindled the confidence of Alyosha, who was about to give up. Then Alyosha raised her head, with a coldness in her eyes. Konohagakure, prepare to face the wrath of my Sunagakure. There are also Cloud Hidden Village and Iwa Ninja Village. Do you really think you can just reap the benefits? Then, he lowered his head, and looked at Beiju in front of him again, and said slowly, when do you guys plan to take action? Danzo, on the side, also became interested after hearing the word Akatsuki. He thought of something he did with the then half-body Sanshou Hanzo in the Rain Ninja Village during the 3rd Ninja War many years ago. Point at that time, they seemed to be trying to destroy an organization called Akatsuki. Could it be? Danzo had some kind of speculation in his mind. As for the 3rd generation sitting next to him, he was closing his eyes and concentrating, as if he didn't hear the conversation between the two people. We still have to ask that adult about the Akatsuki organization's movements, but don't worry, Lord Alyosha. When the time is right, our organization will naturally take action. Ju said with a smile on his face, and after saying that, his body slowly dived into the ground. Lord Rasa, just wait for the arrival of Kirigakure village and launch an attack on Konoha together. After saying this, Beiju's body completely submerged into the ground. Humph. Alyosha snorted coldly at this. Regarding Beiju and Zao behind him, they were just using each other. Although Alyosha didn't know what their purpose was, he would never completely trust Beiju and the others. Maybe, I need to trouble the minister, to send someone to check whether Kirigakure village has really begun to gather people to attack Konoha, as he said. After Beiju left, Alyosha immediately turned to look at Sunday, and said lightly, point as the 4th Kazukage. Alyosha knows that anyone who has been a shadow of a village has his, or her own arrogance. He also has it, and he believes that the 3rd generation in front of him also has it. Therefore, for the 3rd generation, Alyosha has always respected him very much. He has never treated him as a real subordinate. Even if there is something, he will give orders in an extremely gentle tone like now. This is not because Alyosha is afraid of the 3rd generation, but because he has the most basic respect for the shadow of the former village. Yes, after hearing Alyosha's words, the 3rd generation here opened his eyes instantly. After a flash of light, he left here in a flashpoint afterwards. Only Rasa, Danzo, and Sarutobi Ichini were left in the tent. It seems that this is where Sunagakure village is stationed. Shisu looked at the large and small tents in front of him, with a flash of shock in his eyes. He did not expect that so many people would actually come to Sand Hidden Village this time. He just made a rough estimate, and found that the number of people in Sand Hidden Village this time had exceeded 2,000. It's Sunagakure village preparing to start the 4th Ninja War. Hinata, Hui, who was using his Byakugan to observe, said, his tone also full of surprise. Through Byakugan's observation, Hinata Hui discovered that all the ninjas in the camp in front of him were ninjas. The weakest ones were all Chunin, and there were also quite a few Jounin. For a moment, both his and Shisu's faces looked a little heavy. Chapter 200, Defeat Sunagakure with the power of thunder. The border of the Kingdom of Wind is not far from Alyosha's camp. After Zisu and the two observed here for a while, they were ready to return. There are more than 2,000 ninjas in Sunagakure's camp, and even Shisu, who is very confident in his own strength, dare not break in directly. But just when they were about to leave, Hinata Hui, who was opening his eyes, suddenly raised his hand and then spoke. Wait a minute. Shisu frowned at this, and then reacted quickly, and the Scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan appeared in his eyes. But in the end, he still found nothing. Shisu knew that this was because the Sharingan's observation ability was not as good as the Byakugan. Although the Sharingan is powerful, in terms of observation ability, the Byakugan is superior. A small team has left the camp, and is heading towards the Kingdom of Koa. Xiang, who spoke slowly, because the distance was too far. He could only see this after all. Although the Byakugan is powerful, it is too far away from the camp. In addition, there are thousands of people in the camp. The reason why Hinata Hui can see this team is also due to a certain amount of luck. Enti and Shizu left here in a flashpoint naturally. Shizu and the others would not let go of the team that left the Tsunagakure camp. He and Hinagaki split up. Shizu went to track the team's movements, while Hinata headed to the agreed upon location. Meet up with Kei and the others. After Hinata Hui and the others reunited, they followed the clues left by Shizu along the way. It's just tracking a few people, which is not difficult for Shizu, who is a genius of the Uchiha clan. It took almost no effort for Shizu to find the traces of those people. However, because it was too close to Tsunagakure's camp, for safety reasons, Shizu did not choose to take action here. He quietly concealed himself and slowly followed the team in the country of Sichuan. At this time, Kakashi had already joined Hinata, Fire and Yamato, and they found no useful clues in the Koa country. Kakashi even visited the daimyo of the kingdom of Koa and learned from him that Tsunagakure village did not send anyone to contact the kingdom of Koa and directly led a large number of people to stay at the border of the kingdom of Wind. Even the daimyo of the kingdom of Koa took the initiative to send people to contact them, but was driven back. Kakashi knew that this situation was not a good sign. He felt that this time a war would really break out between Konoha and Tsunagakure village. If Tsunagakure village just wanted to shock Konoha, then they would definitely send people to sneak into Kawakuchi, or even into Fire Country, to find out Konoha's movements and reactions. But this time they didn't do anything, which meant that Tsunagakure might really be going to war with the Leaf village. Shadow clone technique. After a slight hesitation, Kakashi formed a shadow clone with one hand and asked the shadow clone to follow Yamato and the others back to the camp where they were stationed. And his body used the flying thunder god to return to the village, and he wanted to report this information to Tsunade as soon as possible. Inside the Hokage's office, Tsunade, who was discussing things with Shikaku, seemed to sense something. She suddenly raised her head and looked out the window, only to see a silver figure flashing there. Boom. Boom. Then there was a knock on the door in the office. "Please come in," Tsunade's voice came out. Then a slender handsome figure opened the door and walked in. It was Kakashi, Hokage-sama. Kakashi walked in and bowed respectfully to Tsunade. Then Shikaku nodded. "Kakashi, how are things at the border? Is Tsunagakure village really going to war with us?" After Tsunade finished speaking, Shikaku also cast his gaze on Kakashi. He had just been discussing with Tsunade how to deal with Tsunagakure village. Whether it was fighting or shocking, they all needed to be planned in advance. Kakashi did not hesitate and directly reported the information he found at the border to the two of them. Tsunade and Shikaku looked at each other, and Tsunagakure's actions did not exceed their expectations. In Konoha today, after the Uchiha clan's internal problems have been resolved, all forces are basically under Tsunade's control. But control is control, and there are still very few people who can truly trust Tsunade. Kakashi and Shikaku in front of her are two of them. Needless to say, Kakashi, as a disciple of Minato, had already been on her side a long time ago, and Shikaku, as Konoha's military advisor, also won Tsunade's trust. Tsunade also confessed some information directly to Shikaku, including the fact that she sent Kakashi to invite the Tsunagakure one-tailed Jinchuriki. Although Shikaku was shocked by this, he had already guessed Tsunade's thoughts in his heart, and it was not that he couldn't accept this, and Konoha was now very powerful. Tsunagakure village is just the bottom of the 5 great ninja villages, and it dares not to take Konoha seriously. Shikaku firmly believes that this battle can be fought directly, and not only to fight, but also to defeat Tsunagakure with thunderous force. This will not only completely defeat Tsunagakure's confidence, but also act as a deterrent to other ninja villages. Tsunade was extremely in favor of Shikaku's proposal, but she felt that it was not enough. She wanted more than just defeating Tsunagakure. Just when she was about to say something, not only Tsunagakure village, other ninja villages will not just watch Konoha defeating Tsunagakure. A tall figure appeared from the darkness. It was Jiraiya. At this time, his face was heavy. Jiraiya also hated the war in his heart, but he also knew in his heart that Tsunade's series of actions were just to end the war completely. So Jiraiya chose to support it. 3 teams should be sent out immediately to monitor the movements of other ninja villages, especially Iwa Ninja Village. That old guy Noki will not let go of such an opportunity easily, Jiraiya said in a serious tone. Tsunade and Shikaku both nodded heavily to this. Tsunade himself had indeed ignored this point just now. As for Shikaku, he was originally prepared to respond to Tsunade on this point. Kakashi then returned to the border of the Land of Fire. Tsunade gave him an order to pay close attention to the movements of the main force in Sunagakure village and report any abnormalities to him as soon as possible. Another point is that the 4th Kazekage is not allowed to enter the Land of Fire point. Although this requirement seems a bit harsh, Tsunade believes in Kakashi. With his strength, he can intercept the 4th Kazekage even in an army of thousands at the same time. All the ninjas in Konoha village and the above were notified, and they all gathered together. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.